Senegalese immigrant Assane Diop plans to steal Marie Antoinette's necklace being auctioned at the Louvre. Will he succeed? Babacar Diop from Senegal works in Paris for the rich Pellegrini family. He drives and cleans for them. His son, Assane, is a teenager. Their experience with the Pellegrinis is mixed. Madame Anne Pellegrini seems friendly, calling Babacar a gentleman. Their daughter, Juliette, shows interest in Assane. But Hubert, the head of the family, is unfriendly to Babacar. Anne feels sorry about Hubert's behavior and offers Babacar any book from their library for Assane's 14th birthday. Babacar picks Arsène Lupin, Gentleman Burglar by Maurice Leblanc. Soon, a valuable diamond necklace, once owned by Queen Marie Antoinette, goes missing from Hubert's safe. Babacar is suspected. Hubert thinks Babacar stole it because he's unhappy with his life compared to the wealthy family. Detective Gabriel Delmotte is called. He suggests taking Babacar to the station to sort things out. Babacar gets angry, insists he's innocent, swearing on Assane's life, and asks Anne for help. But she doesn't respond. Babacar is later found guilty and sent to jail. During a visit, Assane learns his father has hanged himself in prison. This breaks Assane's heart. He believes his father was innocent and blames the Pellegrini family. While looking through his father's things, he discovers the Arsène Lupin book and becomes fascinated by it. Assane meets Claire, his former wife, in a coffee shop. He gives her money for child support and talks about when he can see their 13-year-old son, Raoul. Claire wishes Assane would play a bigger role in Raoul's life. Assane says he'll visit next weekend and promises things will be different. Claire hopes for the best but doubts it. Under the fake name Louis Perena, Assane gets a job as a cleaner at the Louvre, where the Queen's necklace, recently found, is up for auction. He plans to steal it to avenge his father's death. He asks 3 money lenders, Kevin, Vincent, and Rudy, to help him with the theft. They're hesitant, but agree when he shows them his plan. On auction day, they enter the museum disguised as cleaners with chloroform and spray bottles. Assane, pretending to be Paul Cernine, a rich American tech guy, joins the auction run by Juliette Pellegrini. The heist doesn't go as planned. The chloroform doesn't work on the guards, so Kevin, Vincent, and Rudy have to fight them, causing a distraction and losing time. Meanwhile, Assane, bidding on the necklace, faces competition from a German collector. He keeps bidding higher until he wins 60 million euros. Kevin and Vincent, dressed as guards now, decide to double-cross Assane and take the necklace. As Assane is about to get the necklace from Tybalt, the auctioneer, Kevin and Vincent attack, tie them up, take the diamonds, and escape in a flashy Ferrari driven by Rudy. But Rudy crashes near the museum. The police arrive, find the necklace, and arrest the 3 men. Captain Romain Laugier questions Assane but lets him go without evidence linking him to the crime. Secretly, Assane knew Kevin, Vincent, and Rudy might betray him. He switched the real necklace with a fake made by his friend Benjamin during the chaos. He leaves the museum disguised as a janitor with the real necklace. The next day, he keeps his promise to visit Raoul and Claire. While walking with Raoul by the Seine, Assane gives him the same Arsène Lupin book his father gave him 25 years ago. After his father Babacar's death, Assane is left alone in their flat. No one has made plans for him. Detective Dumont comes and starts asking questions about Assane's living situation. Assane says he's 16 and lives with his mom, but Dumont knows he's not telling the truth and tells him to pack his stuff. Assane tries to run away through a window, but Dumont catches him. Assane is then sent to an orphanage. There, a social worker named Philippe Bouchard gives him a Bible. Assane prefers to read his Arsène Lupin stories again, hiding them inside the Bible. Bouchard later tells Assane that someone anonymous has paid for him to go to the fancy undersea school. He also gives Assane a letter from his dad, which seems to admit guilt about the missing necklace. This upsets Assane, and he throws the letter away. At undersea school, Assane faces bullying because of his race and being from a working-class immigrant family. But another student steps in, warning the bullies to stop or they'll be reported to the school officials. This student then introduces himself to Assane as Benjamin Farrell. Assane, accompanied by his son Raoul, goes to see Benjamin at his antique shop to ask about the Queen's necklace. Benjamin reveals to Assane that, unlike what the Pellegrinis claimed, the necklace was never dismantled and showed no signs of tampering, hinting it may never have been stolen. This revelation shocks Assane, raising doubts about his father Babacar's guilt. Soon after, it's revealed in the news that the necklace found by the police after the Louvre theft was actually a replica. Juliette Pellegrini meets with her mother Anne in a luxurious hotel in Paris. Anne describes her life as being trapped in a prison of gold created by Hubert and warns Juliette to be cautious around him because of his many secrets. When Juliette leaves the hotel, she receives an anonymous note instructing her to go to Luxembourg Gardens at 2:00 p.m. without police. Assane, disguised as a Deli delivery person with a mask and sunglasses to hide his identity, meets Juliette there. Despite Assane's hopes, Juliette has informed the police about the note and they are under close surveillance. Assane removes his disguise, surprising Juliette. He quickly covers the microphone on her jacket and tells her he knows the necklace was never dismantled. Juliette confesses that she and Hubert fabricated the story for the auction's publicity and that the original necklace was purchased from a South African jeweler 5 years earlier. Assane urges Juliette to acknowledge his father's innocence, but she is convinced of Babacar's guilt. Quickly leaving Juliette behind, Assane hops on a bicycle and starts to leave the park. Captain Laguerre, who is monitoring everything from a surveillance vehicle, orders his team to track Assane. However, Assane had previously arranged for several men dressed just like him to show up with deliveries, causing confusion. This chaos allows Assane to slip away from the gardens unnoticed, much to Laguerre's frustration. Later, Laguerre brings Juliette in for questioning about her conversation with Assane. Feeling accused and not wanting to reveal Assane's identity, Juliette threatens to use her influence to have Laguerre fired if he doesn't recover the necklace. Annoyed that Juliette didn't declare Babacar innocent, Assane re-examines the confession letter. He notices several spelling errors, which is uncharacteristic for Babacar, who always emphasized correct spelling. 2 misspelled words, comet and library, stand out to Assane, reminding him of Etienne Comet, a fellow inmate of Babacar's who worked in the prison library. Comet is still in the same prison, now sick and confined to his cell. Assane gets into the prison by pretending to visit an inmate named Dijibril Trayar, claiming him as his cousin. He convinces Trayar to swap places with him despite their different looks. Due to a guard shift change, the new guard mistakenly takes Assane to Trayar's cell. Once in prison, Assane tries to contact Comet but learns he is unwell in the infirmary. Soon, Assane is confronted by Bodgin and Mercot, who demand repayment for a debt they claim Trayar owes them. Assane tries to get into the infirmary by flirting with the nurse and feigning a stomach ailment. The nurse, unconvinced by his act, sends him away. Later, Assane provokes Bogdan and Mirko, who retaliate by stabbing him with a sharpened toothbrush. This injury lands him in the infirmary, where the nurse suspects a suicide attempt and lets him stay overnight. Taking advantage of the situation, Assane visits Comet at night. Comet discloses that Babacar had left a book for Assane still in his cell. After leaving the infirmary, Assane finds the book, a collection of Arsène Lupin stories with certain letters and words subtly highlighted. These marked parts, when combined, form the message: "Am innocent," framed by Anne Pellegrini. When Assane's injury reopens, he returns to the infirmary and encounters Comet again. Comet, nearing the end of his life, requests Assane to bring a smile to his wife's face. Grateful for Comet preserving the book, Assane agrees to this final wish. That night, Assane stages a suicide in the prison restroom by using sleeping pills to slow down his heartbeat and a repurposed basketball net as a makeshift safety measure. The prison staff, believing he is dead, are shocked and quickly transport him in an ambulance to a hospital. Assane regains consciousness in the ambulance and manages to escape when it stops at a traffic signal. The following day, Assane confronts Anne Pellegrini in her hotel room, demanding answers about Babacar's alleged confession. Anne confesses that she encouraged Babacar to admit to the theft, despite believing him innocent, in the hope of reducing his sentence, based on promises from the judge and Demont that never materialized. She also reveals that she financed Assane's education at Andrassy School, but this revelation does little to ease Assane's anger over the injustice his father endured. That night, he sneaks into Comet's wife's house, fulfilling his promise to Comet by leaving her a diamond from Marie Antoinette's necklace. Elsewhere, Juliet confronts her father, Hubert, inquiring about Babacar's role in the necklace's disappearance. Hubert reacts furiously, scolding Juliet for dredging up a long-past incident and insisting on Babacar's guilt. However, he later apologizes for his outburst, expressing hurt over what he perceived as his daughter's distrust. At the police station, a young detective named Youssef Goudira notices that Assane's pseudonyms Paul Sernine and Louis Perena are anagrams for Arsène Lupin. Being a fan of Lupin's adventures like Assane, Goudira starts to suspect a connection between Assane and the Louvre heist, drawing parallels to the fictional crimes. He shares his theory with Lieutenant Sofia Belkacem, who dismisses it as far-fetched and advises him not to mention it to their superior, Laguerre. Meanwhile, Claire is pleasantly surprised and pleased to see that Raoul, her and Assane's son, is more engrossed in the Arsène Lupin book given to him by Assane than in his video games. His fascination with the stories is so intense that he stays up late into the night reading them. Detective Gabriel Dumont has a conversation with Hubert Pellegrini, stating that without any concrete proof against Babacar for the Queen's necklace theft, he might be released. Dumont also mentions that Hubert had upped the insurance on the necklace just before it was stolen. Hubert explains this by saying he adjusted the policy after learning from a collector that the necklace was underinsured. In a subsequent discussion, Dumont informs Hubert that Babacar couldn't have stolen the necklace based on his whereabouts at the time of the theft and suggests that the fingerprints found on the safe were likely planted to implicate Babacar. Hubert, sensing Dumont suspects him of insurance fraud, subtly threatens Dumont's wife and suggests that Babacar's confession to the theft might lead to a reduced sentence, although he knows it would actually result in a longer jail term for Babacar. In the orphanage, Assane sees a blonde girl being bothered by some boys. He steps in, asking the boys to back off. Just as the boys might turn on Assane, Philippe Auchard walks in. Assane sits beside the girl, checking if she's okay. Barbarians as kinds of men, Arbarians as who are rude to women, and knights as who think women can't fend for themselves, classifying Assane as a knight. She then softens, acknowledging she knows about Assane and expressing sympathy for Babacar's death. After teasingly calling Assane a knight again and inviting him to relax, she introduces herself as Claire. Later on, Assane and Claire are sitting together on a bench in a park, both immersed in their reading. Claire, noticing Assane's deep interest in his Arsène Lupin book, teases him about Lupin's success with the ladies. Assane shares his admiration for Lupin's ability to always be prepared and fearless. Suddenly, the same group of boys who had earlier bothered Claire show up. Claire advises Assane to pretend to be unresponsive, thinking it will discourage the boys. Despite Claire's reminder about her earlier discussion regarding barbarians and knights, Assane loses his cool and confronts them. Later, as Claire tends to Assane's wounds in the restroom, he attempts to kiss her. She pulls back, laughing, saying she doesn't want a boyfriend. Assane playfully insists that she just hasn't realized yet that he is her soulmate, amusing her further by showing he pickpocketed a lighter from one of the boys he fought. Assane then reflects on Claire's knight and barbarian categorization, proposing he belongs to a third type, a gentleman who only cares about things that truly matter. This strikes a chord with Claire, who responds with a kiss, where she expresses her fondness for the idea of them always being there for each other. Now older and living in a lavish house with his family, Dumont has risen to the position of chief commissioner in the Paris Police Department. Unbeknownst to him, Assane has secretly entered his house and installed cameras in every room to monitor his activities and schedule. Assane visits the town hall in Paris's 3rd district, where Dumont has a meeting. Pretending to be a computer technician, Assane loudly claims there's a problem with pornography on Dumont's office computer. Embarrassed, Dumont allows Assane to guide him to his office. Instead, Assane leads him to a secluded corridor and uses pressure points to render him unconscious. When Dumont regains consciousness, he finds himself bound to a chair in a dimly lit room, facing a television. In a nearby room, Assane, disguising his voice, confronts Dumont about framing Babacar for the Queen's necklace theft. Dumont denies framing anyone and inquires if this is about the Louvre break-in. Assane accuses Dumont of accepting bribes from criminals and threatens to expose him to his wife, Helene, unless he reveals more information. Dumont, now extremely distressed, insists he's clueless about Assane's motives. Assane then calls Dumont's wife. Dumont tries to communicate with her, but is told by Assane that she can't hear him. However, Helene hears Assane threatening her husband, which terrifies her for his safety. A panic-stricken Dumont confesses to Assane that he used the bribe money for his children's future and pleads for water. Assane hangs up the call, enters Dumont's room, gives him a bottle of water, and departs before Dumont can see his face. The intense questioning of Dumont is suddenly disrupted when Assane receives a call from Claire, who is taking a break from her hospital shift. Claire inquires about Assane's plans for their son Raoul's upcoming birthday. Caught off guard, Assane tries to pretend he has a surprise planned, but Claire is doubtful, remembering Assane made similar unfulfilled promises last year. She presses Assane to share what's been occupying him, assuring him he can be honest with her, but he avoids answering. Before ending the call, Claire urges Assane to stay out of trouble. Meanwhile, the news about Dumont's abduction has reached the police station. Laugier gathers his team and instructs them to pursue any leads. Surveillance footage outside the town hall shows a tall West African man with an orange beanie moving a large case into a van, leading the police to suspect Dumont might be inside. Gadira proposes tracking Dumont's phone GPS to find the van. Back in the interrogation room, Assane reveals to Dumont that he has installed cameras in Dumont's house, monitoring his family. Dumont, furious, becomes even more enraged when Assane threatens to release manipulated videos of him making damaging statements unless he cooperates. Frustrated, Dumont demands to know Assane's objective. In the heat of the moment, Assane accidentally discloses his true motive, uncovering the truth about his father's fate. Realizing Assane's identity, Dumont starts to empathize with him, offering understanding and promising not to arrest him if Assane ends the interrogation. Assane, typically unyielding in his opinions of people, contemplates changing his view of Dumont. The police team deduces that the van and Dumont's phone are in Pantin, a northeastern suburb. Laugier, joined by Belkacem, Gadira, and others, heads there to track down the suspect. On arrival, they locate the van and its driver. Searching the van, they find a clown doll and parts of Dumont's phone, including the GPS. Realizing it's a trick, they question the van driver, who explains he was hired to drive someone around the town hall and then return him there. Gadira suddenly figures out that Dumont never actually left the town hall. Laugier and Belkacem find this hard to believe and question who would orchestrate such a plan. Gadira suggests it's something Arsène Lupin would do. Despite Belkacem's mockery, they decide to follow Gadira's hunch and arrive at the town hall just after Assane has left. There, they find an untied Dumont, who denies knowing his kidnapper's identity. Back at the police station, Gadira shares his theory about the necklace theft and the Arsène Lupin stories with Laugier. He believes the man in the orange hat on the security footage, Paul Sernine, and the individual who met Juliette in Luxembourg Gardens are the same person, connected by Dumont's involvement in the original necklace case. Meanwhile, Dumont, safely at home, recalls the cameras Assane installed and furiously destroys them. He then phones Hubert Pellegrini to inform him of a new player in the Babacar Diop case. Unbeknownst to Dumont, Assane, having hacked into Dumont's virtual assistant, records their conversation. At night, Assane operates a drone to sneak into Hubert Pellegrini's grand house. It takes pictures of several documents in his office. When the security team captures the drone, Hubert discovers a message attached to it declaring, "I'll get you." During breakfast at a cafe, Dumont is approached by Assane, who introduces himself. When Assane asks about Hubert, Dumont is hesitant at first but agrees to talk after Assane pledges to leave him and his family alone. Dumont suggests that Assane should reach out to a reporter named Fabienne Beria, who almost succeeded in exposing the Pellegrini family's corrupt dealings. Assane looks up Fabienne's work online. Her book, Dirty Money, The Pellegrini System, published in 1996, led to Hubert hitting her with a massive lawsuit for defamation, ruining her career and causing her to be shunned by other journalists. Nowadays, Fabienne lives in solitude with her dog named Jacques. Assane decides to buy Fabienne's book. Days later, Fabienne returns home to find Assane waiting for her. Although taken aback, she isn't scared. Assane mentions he's read her book, to which she responds that Fabienne no longer exists due to Hubert Pellegrini's actions. Assane shares that he and Fabienne have Hubert as a common foe. Whenever Pellegrini is mentioned, Jacques, her dog, barks, a behavior Fabienne trained him to do. Despite her initial doubts about Assane's intentions, thinking he might be a spy for Hubert, she listens as Assane talks about Babacar's arrest and death in jail, proposing they join forces against Hubert. In the police station, Laguerre, Belkacom, and Gid Xidra informed Dumont of their belief that the person responsible for both the kidnapping and the Louvre theft is the same individual. They point out the connection to Dumont's handling of the original investigation into the Queen's necklace and the similar flair in both crimes. Guidera, despite opposition, suggests considering the theory that the thief is imitating Arsène Lupin. Dumont scoffs at the idea, but agrees to let the detectives gather evidence and witness accounts to build a profile of the thief. Following this, Dumont sends a message to Hubert Pellegrini to arrange a meeting about Babacar. The following morning, Assane is caught off guard when he sees Fabienne waiting for him in her car outside his place. She explains to Assane that after Hubert ruined her career, she has nothing else to lose and seeks vengeance. Assane welcomes Fabienne into his home, where she inquires about the year his father was wrongfully accused of stealing the necklace. Learning it was in 1995, Fabienne suggests that Pellegrini, who was facing financial difficulties at that time, might have set up Babacar to claim the insurance money for the necklace. Assane agrees, but points out they need concrete evidence to charge Hubert with a crime. Fabienne takes Assane to the building of The Objector, the newspaper where she spent her entire journalism career. She informs Assane that there's a videotape in the archives that could incriminate Hubert. By joining forces, they manage to enter the building and find the tape. The footage on the tape reveals Hubert involved in illegal arms dealings with Malaysian terrorists who later attacked the French embassy, killing 11. Assane observes that Hubert's actions constitute a betrayal against France. Meanwhile, Hubert and Juliette, during a meeting with investors, are alarmed to learn that a Twitter account named Salvatore113 has shared a screenshot from the video, threatening to expose the full story unless Hubert admits to his involvement in the necklace theft. While Juliette worries about the video's impact, Hubert maintains it's a fabrication. Concerned about the reputation of her upcoming foundation, Juliette convinces Hubert to hold a press conference regarding the tape. When Assane visits to spend time with Raoul, he notices Claire rushing out for what she says is a night with her friends. As they play video games, Raoul shares his enjoyment of the Arsène Lupin book and its sequels, and confides that Claire is actually on a date with a new doctor she's been seeing, not with friends as she claimed. Assane expresses happiness for Claire, but Raoul, sensing his father's detachment, urges him to acknowledge his true feelings. Assane and Benjamin are watching on TV as Hubert addresses the media in a press conference. Hubert downplays the accusations as mere rumors, stating he's only speaking out because of his daughter's charitable project. He dares Salvador to come forward and back up his claims. Amid the journalists, Fabienne challenges Hubert about his possible role in the 1996 Malaysian terrorist incident. Hubert, visibly upset, refuses to comment further. Later, Assane meets Fabienne at her place. He praises her for confronting Hubert publicly, which she admits felt empowering. She also mentions that one of Hubert's men tried to tail her, but she managed to shake him off. Assane worries for her safety, but Fabienne assures him she can handle herself thanks to her reporting skills. Assane shares his intention to appear on the TV program The Other Edition in disguise, despite Fabienne's criticism of the show's journalistic value. She wants to accompany him, but Assane insists she stays home for her safety. As Assane prepares his disguise, Fabienne feels rejuvenated by their actions. On another front, the police struggle to accurately depict Assane's appearance, as witnesses provide conflicting descriptions. Even with a reconstruction based on a loan shark's help, Dumont denies it resembles the kidnapper, leading him to dismiss the detectives from linking the two cases. Guidera gets removed from the investigation for his persistence. Suspecting Dumont's denial, especially after noticing Dumont's initial reaction to the accurate depiction. However, with no evidence to act against their superior and fearing the case might be transferred, Laugier advises dropping the matter despite the shared suspicion among the detectives. In disguise as the elderly and bearded Salvatore, Assane appears on the other edition. The host is surprised by Salvatore's aged appearance, to which Assane responds, emphasizing that age does not define those who stand against injustice. He discusses the tape's damning evidence, but when they play it, the incriminating parts have been mysteriously erased, leaving no proof. Despite security's efforts to detain him, Assane fights his way out and leaves the studio in frustration, shedding his disguise as he heads back to Fabienne's place. Unbeknownst to him, Hubert was secretly watching the show and receives a call from Juliette, who, having watched online, suspects Salvatore is really Assane Diop. She connects him to previous encounters in the necklace theft from the Louvre, sharing her belief with Hubert that Assane is targeting the Pellegrinis over Babacar's death to bring their downfall. Fabienne, disheartened by the failed attempt to expose Hubert on air, is confronted at her door by Leonard Cohen, who demands Assane's location under threat. Remaining true to her principles, Fabienne refuses to divulge her source. Faking after Assane arrives to find a devastating scene. Fabienne has been killed, mirroring the tragic fate of Babacar 25 years prior. Overcome with grief, Assane is brought to tears by the loss. He later discovers a note from Fabienne inside her book, where she asserts that their struggle against injustice is far from over. Meanwhile, at the police department, Gudira watches Assane's interview as Salvatore and senses something familiar. He draws a connection between the man on TV and the facial composite that Dumont seemed to recognize, realizing they match, and begins to piece together Assane's involvement. 11 years after the passing of Babacar, Assane has mastered the art of being a clever, small-time crook, using his charm and friendly demeanor to win over people before tricking them. On a particular occasion, he pretends to be a cop to get into the home of a rich elderly lady named Agatha van der Meulen. He convinces her that thieves targeting her area might come for her valuables, suggesting she hand over her most precious items to him for protection. Agatha complies, giving him valuables her husband collected from the former Belgian Congo, thinking of him as a true gentleman. Later on, Assane is at a fancy bar having drinks with Benjamin, who shares that he's found the perfect spot for his antique store. In a gesture of celebration, Assane presents Benjamin with some of the items he took from Agatha, including a Faberge egg. To set, when Juliette Pellegrini walks into the bar, Assane steps away for a moment. Assane catches up with Juliette in the bathroom, where they've been secretly seeing each other. He tells her he's decided to end their affair because he wants to be fully committed to Claire. Juliette, clearly upset, tells Assane she's tired of waiting for him. Assane responds by saying she doesn't have to wait anymore because his heart belongs to Claire. Meanwhile, Claire is seeing a therapist, troubled about her relationship with Assane. She talks about how he often shows up late to their plans, and she admits she doesn't really know what he does when they're apart. Despite giving Assane many opportunities to change, he keeps letting her down. The therapist wonders why Claire stays with him since they're not married and don't have kids. However, Claire is worried because she's just found out she's expecting Assane's baby. Encouraged by the therapist, Claire decides she needs to talk to Assane that evening to figure out if he truly cares for her. During dinner at a pricey restaurant that night, Claire and Assane quickly start arguing because Claire had wanted a more intimate setting. Seeing Claire's distress, Assane asks what's wrong. In a soft voice, Claire shares that she's pregnant. Assane reacts with happiness and excitement, loudly sharing the news with everyone there. In the midst of the celebration, Assane notices Agatha nearby and quickly leaves the restaurant with Claire. As they walk on the Passerelle de Mornay, Claire mentions the baby is due on December 11th. Assane is amazed, noting that's the birthday of Maurice Leblanc, who created Arsène Lupin. After a few playful name suggestions don't appeal to Claire, Assane promises to do everything he can to keep their child safe and suggests the name Raoul as a final idea. On the 11th of December in 2020, it's reported that Fabienne has been found deceased in her apartment. At his place, with Fabienne's dog Jacques, Assane tells his friend Benjamin that he blames himself for her death. Benjamin is worried Assane is getting too deep into trouble, but Assane is determined not to let Hubert Pellegrini get the upper hand. Benjamin reminds him about his former wife and kid, who still care about him, mentioning he had a surprise planned for his child. Assane isn't in the mood to celebrate, but Benjamin suggests that not celebrating would mean letting Pellegrini win. This thought motivates Assane, who then leaves J'accuse with Benjamin and heads to Claire's place. In the meantime, Gudira has been quietly using his punishment of doing paperwork to dig deeper into the connections between the Lupin stories and the crimes he suspects are done by the same person. On the morning of December 11th, he finds himself waking up at his desk and sees a phone alert reminding him it's Maurice Leblanc's birthday. There's a festival in Etretat, Normandy, to celebrate, where Leblanc used to live. Acting on a gut feeling, he decides to call in sick to work, texting Belkacem to inform her of his illness. While navigating the streets of Paris, Assane notices Leonard Cawan is tailing him. A pursuit unfolds, with Assane managing to dodge capture by sprinting through a parking garage's levels and leaping from one roof to another. Reaching Claire's place, Assane surprises Raoul with a gift, a top hat and cape reminiscent of Lupin. Raoul is uncertain about the gift, but Assane convinces him he'll appreciate it once they arrive at their special destination. Claire sends them off warmly, and Assane reveals he's also secured a ticket for her. Despite her frustration over Assane's secretive ways, she decides to come along. Shortly, Assane, Claire, and Raoul will find themselves on a train headed to Le Havre, close to the Arsène Lupin festival in Etretat, Assane's intended surprise. During the journey, Assane and Claire engage in light-hearted debate over the Lupin tales, echoing memories from the start of their relationship. Raoul, finding his parents' antics amusing yet slightly embarrassing, calls them crazy, to which Assane responds that their craziness is what binds them. Assane then inquires about Claire's new partner, but she dismisses the question, maintaining her privacy. Raoul accidentally hints that Claire's new relationship isn't advancing fast, much to her annoyance. To capture the moment, they take a group selfie for Raoul's birthday. Reviewing the photo, Assane is startled to spot Leonard in the background. Meanwhile, Leonard calls Hubert Pellegrini, reporting he's located Assane, who is with his family. Hubert orders Leonard to eliminate Assane without harming Claire and Raoul. To distract everyone, Assane pulls out a marble cake from his bag, stands up in the train aisle, and starts singing happy birthday to Raoul loudly. Claire and the other passengers join in. During the song, Assane locks eyes with Leonard, signaling that he knows he's there. After the song, Assane mentions to Claire that he's off to grab some drinks from a different part of the train. As he walks through the train cars, Leonard rises to follow him. Assane manages to lose Leonard by cleverly navigating through various barriers. By the time Leonard reaches the end of the train cars, Assane has disappeared. Knowing Assane is still on the train, Leonard searches and finds him hiding in a storage room. A fight breaks out between them, ending with Assane overpowering Leonard and locking him in the storage room. When Assane gets back to his seat, Claire notices he looks tired and asks what happened. Assane jokes that he argued with another Arsène Lupin enthusiast about which story is the best. Raoul finds the story silly. Claire is surprised by the fight and has doubts but doesn't question further. As they approach Le Havre, Leonard escapes the storage room and sits by Claire and Raoul while Assane is at the luggage rack. Leonard strikes up a conversation about Etretat and Lupin, unsettling Claire. She asks Assane if they know each other, and while Assane denies it, Leonard insists they do. In a final move to get rid of Leonard, Assane texts Laguerre with a tip that Paul Sernine, described with Leonard's appearance, is on the train. Laguerre alerts the Le Havre police to meet them on arrival. When the train stops, Assane tells Claire, still uneasy about Leonard, to exit with Raoul, promising to follow shortly. Leonard, armed with a gun, intends to leave the train quietly with Assane. As they step out, police are waiting and arrest Leonard after discovering the gun and one of Marie Antoinette's diamonds, which Assane had sneakily placed in his pocket on him. In Etretat, Assane, Claire, and Raoul stroll down the seaside walk. Raoul, donning the cape and top hat from Assane, comments that his outfit would seem odd elsewhere but fits right in at the Arsène Lupin festival where everyone is similarly dressed. Raoul decides to explore the beach and the Hollow Needle, a famous rock formation from the Lupin stories, while Claire cautions him not to stray too far. Meanwhile, Laurier and Belkacem receive photos of Leonard from the Le Havre police. When they plan to head to Le Havre, they encounter Dumont, who informs them that Leonard was released by the police because he had a gun license and an alibi for the Louvre theft. Dumont directs them to check the train footage for clues on who might have planted the diamond on Leonard, leading Laurier to lament Godira's absence and Belkacem to doubt Dumont's intentions. As Assane and Claire walk closely in Reddit, Claire seeks answers about the man on the train. Assane vaguely mentions dealing with a matter related to him and Raoul, tied to his father's story. Claire, frustrated by Assane's secrecy, demands more openness in their relationship. Assane pleads for one more chance, emphasizing his commitment to her and Raoul. Suddenly, Claire realizes Raoul is missing from the beach. Panic ensues as they search for him, Assane on the walkway and Claire among the beachgoers, both hindered by the many festival attendees dressed like Lupin. Unknown to them, Leonard has kidnapped Raoul, driving away with him. As Claire's search grows more frantic, Assane is startled by someone calling out Lupin and turns to see Godira standing there. Assane catches up with Claire as she exits a music school, curious about how her violin class went. He notices her annoyance and questions if he's to blame for her mood. Claire responds tersely that not everything is about him and moves on. Assane trails her to a violin maker's shop, where she discloses that a fellow student intentionally damaged her violin. The craftsman, Lorenzo Caligari, tells Claire the cost to fix her instrument would be higher than purchasing a new one. Distraught over an upcoming critical audition, Claire is then offered to try one of Lorenzo's violins. She finds it perfect but is taken aback by its 3,000 francs price tag, well beyond what she can afford. Assane, who had been secretly observing from a hidden spot, steps forward, pointing out a rental option for 350 francs per day. However, Lorenzo refuses to rent the violin to Assane without giving a clear reason, simply stating his right to choose his customers. An attempt by Claire to leave the shop is thwarted by Assane's insistence on confronting Lorenzo's discriminatory behavior. Sharing his woes with Benjamin, Assane is inspired by Arsène Lupin to solve Claire's dilemma by acquiring a violin through theft, planning to return it post-audition. With Benjamin keeping watch, Assane clumsily enters the shop through a back door during Lorenzo's absence, grabbing the most valuable violin he can find and escaping just as Lorenzo returns. After her class, Claire finds Assane outside the school with a violin case, surprised and elated by the gesture. Assane insists he merely borrowed the violin, avoiding the truth of his actions. He declines Claire's request to play for him, instead suggesting he'll attend her audition. At the audition, Assane and Benjamin watch Claire's performance with admiration until Lorenzo, accompanied by police, interrupts, leading to Assane and a distraught Claire being escorted away. On the morning of December 11th, Youssef Godira finds himself on a train heading to Normandy, not knowing that Assane, Claire, Raoul, and Leonard are also passengers. Once in Etretat, he notices Claire frantically searching for Raoul. Shifting his focus from the seaside, he spots Raoul being forcefully put into a car by Leonard and taken away. Soon after, he sees Assane, looking just like the person in his sketch, calling out for Raoul. Approaching him, Godira questions Lupin. Assane, caught off guard, turns to face him. Godira wonders if they're on the lookout for a kid dressed as Arsène Lupin. Godira informs them he saw a boy matching that description struggling with a man by the parking area. The trio heads to the parking lot only to find Raoul missing. Godira updates them that the boy and his captor left in a gray BMW. Claire, recognizing the man from the train, blames Assane for Raoul's abduction. In a desperate move, Assane takes antenna from a parked car to unlock another vehicle. Claire, overwhelmed with fear, threatens to involve the police. Assane tries to soothe her, insisting she trust him to safely retrieve Raoul, pleading with her not to call the authorities. Claire sharply retorts that her trust in Assane vanished long ago. After unlocking a car, Assane hops into the driver's seat, with Godira taking the seat next to him, offering his assistance in the search for Raoul. Agreeing to the help, they leave a worried Claire behind in Etretat. Frustrated by the police's nonchalant reaction to her emergency call, Claire departs in dismay. On the road, Gudeira consults a map and deduces they must head towards Bourneville, suspecting Leonard passed through there. He also mentions needing to make a stop to call his wife. Meanwhile, Leonard, on the outskirts of Bourneville, moves a tied-up and silenced Raoul from his car's backseat to the trunk. He then stops in the town center to use a phone in a local bar, encountering unfriendly glares from the locals. After being told he must buy something to use the phone, Leonard purchases a drink and contacts Hubert Pellegrini, informing him of Raoul's abduction. Hubert, displeased, scolds Leonard for capturing Raoul instead of just targeting Assane and demands he rectify the mistake. Spotting Assane and Gudeira arriving in Bourneville, Leonard keeps a close watch. Inside the pub, Gudeira reaches out to Sophia Belkacom, revealing he's in Normandy with Paul Surnine, surprising her. She agrees to come assist. Assane, entering after Gudeira's call, inquires if anyone has seen Raoul, facing the same unwelcoming attitude Leonard encountered. When Gudeira spots Leonard leaving, they quickly get back to their car to follow him. Despite keeping up for a while, Leonard eventually shakes them off and heads to a deserted hunting cabin in the Norman woods, where he secures Raoul to a chair. Assane and Gudeira pick up on Leonard's trail, leading them to the mansion. Leonard, armed with a gun, watches from a window while Gudeira hides in the underbrush, and Assane boldly steps into the open field in front of the house. From afar, Assane hears Raoul's muffled cries for help. Dialing Raoul's cell phone, now with Leonard, Assane warns that if Raoul is harmed, he will retaliate against Leonard. After leaving the field, Gudeira suggests to Assane they should call the police, but Assane dismisses the idea, criticizing the police as either inept or corrupt. He insists the kidnapper had police backing. Once back in the car, Assane confronts Gudeira about his real identity as a detective, having deduced it himself. Gudeira confesses his long pursuit of Assane and his understanding of Assane's tactics. Assane likens Gudeira to Ganimard, the detective who endlessly chased Arsène Lupin in the Tales, and then surprises Gudeira by binding him and taking his police badge before leaving the car. As night envelops the area, Assane slips into the lodge to find Raoul and confront Leonard, who awaits with a hunting rifle. Their confrontation escalates into a physical struggle, with Assane disarming Leonard using a stick and eventually ejecting him from a window. Searching the mansion for Raoul, Assane is unaware Leonard, though hurt, has confined Raoul in the car's trunk and doused it with gasoline. Leonard ignites the fuel, setting the car ablaze, and taunts Assane with a message about checking the car. Rushing outside, Assane is devastated by the sight of the flaming BMW, collapsing in anguish under the belief Raoul was inside. At that critical moment, Belkacem arrives, aiming a gun at Assane and cuffing him despite his pleas and the grief-stricken cries for his son, echoing into the darkness. Assane is sent to Monsieur Bouchard's office, a social worker who had once placed him in an orphanage, due to his involvement in stealing a violin from Lorenzo Caligari's store. While waiting for Bouchard and answering machine records, a message from Lorenzo suggesting that Assane be strictly disciplined. Assane quietly takes the tape from the machine before Bouchard enters the room. In their conversation, Bouchard mentions that he plans to decide on Assane's punishment after consulting with Lorenzo. When Assane inquires about the outcome if Lorenzo fails to get in touch, Bouchard states his intention to visit the shop personally to speak with Lorenzo. To prevent this from happening, Assane, with Benjamin's assistance, makes a call to Bouchard from a public phone. Assane disguises his voice to sound like Lorenzo since Bouchard and Lorenzo have never met face-to-face. Claire, heartbroken and unsure how to find Raoul, takes a train back to Paris, fighting tears. A passenger opposite her unfolds a newspaper featuring an article on Fabienne Barriot's death, her opposition to Hubert Pellegrini, and Salvatore 813 segment on the other edition. The photo of Salvatore in the paper shocks Claire as she recognizes Assane. After reading the article, Claire's distress intensifies, connecting Assane's actions with the danger surrounding Raoul. Upon reaching Paris, Claire seeks out Benjamin, inquiring about the incidents mentioned in the newspaper. Benjamin attempts to defend Assane but is taken aback when Claire informs him of Raoul's abduction and suspects Hubert's involvement. Despite Benjamin's confidence in Assane's ability to resolve the situation, Claire remains skeptical and implores him to assist in locating her son. Meanwhile, in Normandy, Guedera frees himself from Assane's restraints. He notices Leonard's BMW ablaze and hears Raoul's cries from the trunk. Shocked, he rushes to the car, leverages the trunk open with a rod, and he and Raoul retreat to the safety of another vehicle. As Leonard fires shots sporadically, they dodge the gunfire and drive away at dawn. Leonard reports back to Hubbard, who then instructs Dumont to arrange for Guedera to deliver Raoul to the Park Hyatt Hotel in central Paris. In the vehicle, Guedera shares with Raoul their mutual admiration for Arsène Lupin, leading Raoul to inquire about Guedera's preferred character. Guedera admits his fondness for Inspector Ganimard, highlighting their shared profession in law enforcement. Raoul, amused, reveals his own preference for Lupin, likening him to his father, whom he considers his hero. Concurrently, Assane is detained by Belkacem, who doubts the genuineness of his distress over the previous evening's fiery incident. Assane persistently asks Belkacem to disclose what was found in the trunk of Leonard's charred vehicle. Eventually, Belkacem, irritated by his continuous questioning, admits that the trunk was empty. Realizing Raoul is safe, Assane is secretly relieved. While the vehicle is low on fuel, Belkacem instructs Hector, her accompanying officer, to stop at a gas station. Assane requests to use the restroom, and after some hesitation, Belkacem consents, cautioning Hector to supervise. Inside, Assane convinces Hector to remove his handcuffs, only to handcuff Hector instead and make his escape. Approaching a man at the gas station, Assane, using Guedera's police badge, tricks the man into believing his car has a flat tire. As the man checks, Assane deflates one of Belkacem's car tires, commandeers the man's car, and flees. Belkacem, upon finding Hector restrained and witnessing Assane's getaway, is infuriated. Back in Paris, Claire arranges a meeting with Hubert, proposing to trade the diamonds from the necklace held by Benjamin for Raoul. Hubert dismisses the value of the diamonds, insisting instead on capturing Assane. Fearful for Raoul and frustrated with Assane for placing him in jeopardy, Claire yields to Hubert's strategy, agreeing to have Hubert's associates, led by Pascal Oblet, stationed outside her residence in anticipation. On his way back to Paris, Assane, using Guedera's mobile, notices a message from Dumont praising him for securing Raoul. Pretending to be Guedera, Assane responds, claiming he's driving and unable to talk. Down instructs to deliver Raoul to the Park Hyatt Hotel downtown, where a celebration for Hubert and Juliet's new foundation is set. Gisir with Raoul approaches Claire's apartment, but is intercepted by Pascal, who instructs him to head to the Hyatt as per Dumont's command. At the hotel, Dumont lauds Guedera for bringing back Raoul, who expresses a desire to return home. Dumont reassures Raoul that the situation is almost resolved. Subsequently, Guedera at the police station receives a note thanking him as Ganimard. Raoul meets with Hubert, who explains the purpose of his foundation aimed at aiding children of criminal parents. Raoul, distressed, denies his parents are criminals. When pressed by Hubert about Assane's profession, Raoul's inability to answer leads Hubert to label Assane as a thief, asserting Assane's indifference towards his family. Raoul vehemently disagrees. Hubert ominously mentions Assane's imminent arrival at the hotel. Assane sneaks into the hotel's gala disguised as a waiter, complete with a mustache and fake teeth. A sharp-eyed receptionist spots him, prompting security to give chase. Assane quickly deals with them in an elevator, leaving them unconscious. Realizing his cover is blown, he exits the hotel, discarding his waiter outfit and disguise along the way. Meanwhile, Dumont with Raoul gets a call from someone he thinks is Hubert, actually Assane, using a voice-altering device instructing him to move Raoul out of the hotel for safety. Dumont complies, guiding Raoul to a black van that the fake Hubert designated as their escape vehicle. After Raoul is driven away, Dumont receives another call from Hubert, only to find the real Hubert in front of him, sparking confusion but leaving Hubert unfazed because of his leverage over Claire. In the van, Raoul and Assane share a joyful reunion. Raoul questions Assane about his life choices, particularly his alleged thievery and its connection to Raoul's abduction. Assane solemnly explains his past conflicts with the Pellegrini family, vowing retribution against Hubert. Raoul, reflecting on Claire's words about Assane's inability to change, asks his father about the future. Assane promises to alter his ways post-settling his scores, but Raoul supports his father's mission, reassuring Assane of his approval. This support warms Assane as he drives Raoul home. Upon their arrival, Claire watches from her apartment, initially overjoyed to see Raoul. However, her happiness dims upon noticing Assane, reminding her of the compromise she made with Hubert. As the intercom buzzes, Claire negotiates a moment of privacy with her son from Pascal and his team. The moment Raoul calls out to her, Claire rushes to embrace him with unrestrained joy. Yet, when Assane steps into view, Claire's joy turns to dread. Holding Raoul close, she urges Assane to flee for his safety. Assane and Benjamin have honed their craft in performing magic tricks for money across Parisian parks. During one of these days, they encounter Juliette Pellegrini, who requests Assane to meet her at the same location the following day. Subsequently, Hubert informs Juliette that she was observed interacting with a black youngster and strictly instructs her to cease all communications with him henceforth. Following Claire's urgent plea, Assane rushes into an empty storage space on the stairwell and quickly moves a ceiling panel to climb to a secure spot. Right after, Pascal, along with other officers, surge out of Claire's apartment, descending the stairs in a hurry to search for Assane. Once they've left, Claire pulls Raoul inside, anxiously checking on his well-being. Raoul reassures her, commending Assane for his daring rescue. Claire, however, becomes upset and claims that Assane is a perilous individual who exploits others. As Raoul counters her claims, Claire becomes increasingly distraught, insisting that Raoul's ordeal was solely due to Assane. Embracing Raoul while crying, she expresses her wish for Assane to stay away from them. Assane, concealed in the space above, overhears this conversation, feeling heartbroken. Later on, Assane and Benjamin share a moment over coffee in a cafe. Benjamin notices Assane's somber mood. Assane shares that Claire has severed ties with him, leaving him without contact with Raoul for a week. He expresses frustration over Claire's decision to hand him over to Hubert. Benjamin sympathizes with Claire's predicament, pointing out her desperation and the threat posed by Pascal and his team. He suggests focusing their efforts against Hubert, especially after Hubert targeted Assane's son. In response, Assane decides they should target Hubert's daughter next. Meanwhile, Assane contacts Guadra, playfully calling him Ganimard, and instructs him to meet at Place Dauphine by himself on Monday at 10:00 a.m. Hubert agrees to a consultation with a youthful financial consultant named Philippe Corbett, who outlines his vision for the contributions to the Pellegrini Foundation. Hubert plans to allocate just 15 of the funds to the actual foundation, diverting the remaining 85 to his private offshore account. Struck by Philippe's youthful appearance, Hubert questions his age, which Philippe dismissively skirts, emphasizing the significance of his service fee over his age, quoting 10,000 euros per hour. Hubert admires Philippe's boldness. When questioned about Juliette's awareness of the scheme, Hubert clarifies she's out of the loop. Meanwhile, Assane passes by the restaurant arranged by Benjamin and notices Juliette signaling him to join her. She expresses her wish to move past their father's historical grievances. Juliette also mentions being ditched by Velmont. In their conversation, Juliette shares the intensification of her professional commitments, leaving her drained. Assane probes if she longs for the excitement of her youth, to which she admits. Seeking a thrill, they dash off without settling the bill, commandeer a motorcycle, and take off for a spontaneous ride through Paris. Juliette is unaware that Assane had previously arranged with the restaurant staff and the bike's owner for their escapade. Back at his antique shop, Benjamin welcomes Claire in her new companion, Marc. He reassures Claire about Assane's well-being, advising her not to fret. Following their departure, Marc returns alone to purchase a bracelet for Claire. Delighted with the gift, Claire flaunts it on her Instagram with a selfie. Assane and Juliette meet at the Musée d'Orsay, where she is organizing a charity gala. Juliette expresses enjoyment from their recent adventure, but insists they cannot revert to the past. Later, Juliet receives a shipment containing what appears to be a valuable Pissarro painting from the museum. Actually, a forgery by Benjamin, accompanied by a note from Assane hinting at the possibility of pausing time. Concurrently, Juliet encounters a fabricated news alert on her computer, falsely reporting the Pissarro's theft, complete with manipulated video of the museum's curator seemingly grieving the artwork's loss, referencing the actual discussion about the 2019 Notre Dame fire. Juliet is simultaneously touched by Assane's bold act and troubled by the thought of possessing a stolen artwork. Two men posing as police officers, but actually former inmates acquainted with Assane, inquire about the painting's disappearance, leading a flustered Juliet to deny any knowledge. During a stroll in a park, Juliet confronts Assane about his reckless actions, reminding him of his past decision to choose Claire over her. Assane admits his mistake, but is challenged by Juliet to demonstrate his sincerity. She mentions seeing Claire's new bracelet on Instagram and insists Assane steal it for her. Reluctant to actually take the bracelet from Claire, Assane seeks Benjamin's help to craft a similar one. Benjamin confesses he sold the original bracelet to Mark, highlighting its uniqueness and suggesting Assane has no choice but to physically take it. Assane enters Claire's apartment stealthily at night, finds her sleeping with Mark, and carefully takes the bracelet from her, replacing it with a small electronic watch under the bed. He also leaves a copy of Arsène Lupin Sherlock Holmes in Raoul's room, marking a silent visit to his son. Juliet is initially delighted when Assane gives her the bracelet, but Assane expresses his desire for a fresh start, suggesting they return both the bracelet to Claire and the fake painting to the Musée d'Orsay. He reflects on how Hubert has always been a barrier to their relationship. Juliet advises him to let go of her father's shadow. Assane brings up the false accusations Hubert made against Babacar and encourages Juliet to learn the truth from her mother about Hubert's actions in the 90s, suggesting she get her mother to share everything with a detective nicknamed Ganimard. Juliet hands back the bracelet, which Assane sends to Claire, and later, a fabricated alert informs her of the Pissarro's supposed return to the museum. Following Assane's advice, Juliet confronts her mother Anne for the complete story. Anne admits Hubert framed Babacar for theft to claim insurance money due to financial woes. Juliet questions why Anne never exposed Hubert, to which Anne responds she wanted to protect Juliet from losing her father. Distraught, Juliet presses Anne to reveal the truth to the authorities. Reluctantly, Anne agrees to speak with Ganimard. Consequently, on a Monday at Tenzire, Anne divulges everything to Guidere. In a subsequent scene, as Hubert is busy with paperwork alongside Philippe, Laguier, and Guidere arrest him on charges of fraud and obstruction of justice. After his arrest, to provide solace to Juliet, Assane meets her by the scene, where they share a kiss. Hubert is taken to the police station by Laguier and Belkacem for an interrogation session. During the questioning, Hubert hints that his connection with Albert Fontan, the Interior Minister, will help him get out of trouble. He refutes all accusations related to the theft of the Queen's necklace. But when Laguier and Belkacem show him a facial sketch of Paul Sernine, Hubert instantly recognizes the person in the sketch as Assane Diop. When the topic shifts to Leonard, Hubert claims he doesn't know him. A call from Albert Fontan, as expected, soon leads to his release. Juliet encounters Assane in a park, sharing that her father has been released and expressing frustration over his continuous triumphs. She thinks about calling off a concert planned at the Théâtre du Châtelet meant to launch her foundation, but Assane persuades her to proceed, highlighting the benefit it would offer to needy children. He departs following a call from Benjamin, who is simply venting about Fabien's dog, J'accuse, and its incessant barking. In a confidential meeting, Pascal Oblet informs Hubert and Leonard that Fabien's funeral expenses were covered by someone named B. T.A. Farrell. This gives Hubert evidence of Assane having an accomplice. Pascal recommends that they monitor Benjamin in hopes of tracking down Assane's residence. Hubert assigns Leonard to oversee this task, but secretly instructs Pascal to eliminate Leonard due to his past errors. Guidere recalls Claire from their encounter in Yshredet and decides to question her about Assane at the station. Despite being upset with Assane, Claire is unwilling to betray him to the police, insisting she doesn't know his whereabouts. Both Guidere and Belkacem are skeptical of her claim. Gadira inquires if Claire knows the men who were seen outside her apartment when he returned Raoul home, which she denies, emphasizing how the kidnapping ordeal was traumatizing and expressing relief at having Raoul back. Belkacem mentions that police will guard her home in case Assane attempts to visit, but Claire insists it's unnecessary as she doesn't want Assane around her son. Despite Claire's preferences, Assane keeps in touch with Raoul, often sharing stories about special editions of the Arsène Lupin books. In one conversation, Raoul shares his worry with his father that Assane's adventures seem endless. Assane assures him he's close to wrapping things up, to which Raoul points out he's heard that before. Assane chuckles, noting Raoul's resemblance to Claire and his skepticism, and wonders aloud if Claire is coaching him. Raoul insists he's speaking his own mind. Benjamin agrees to bring Assane's dog, J'accuse, to Assane's place. Without Benjamin knowing, Leonard tails him. Once inside, Assane and Benjamin talk about Juliet's soon-to-happen concert. Benjamin leaves the dog with Assane and takes his leave. As Assane plays a Four Tops record and starts preparing dinner for himself and J'accuse, Leonard sneaks into the apartment. The loud music prevents Assane from hearing Leonard aim a gun at him, nor does he hear Pascal come in and silently take down Leonard before he can shoot. After the deed, Pascal slips out and dials the police, falsely reporting a disturbance at Assane's apartment. Assane, coming out of the kitchen, is stunned to find Leonard's body. He quickly leaves with J'accuse, just moments before the police show up. That evening, both Claire and Juliet watch in dismay as news breaks nationally, mistakenly identifying Assane as the prime suspect in the murder and the Louvre theft. In Assane's apartment, while going through the clues, Belkacem tells Laguerre that she had previously arrested Assane in Normandy and was planning to question him. Laguerre reveals he has found the pen Paul Sernine stole from the Louvre in October. They both find amusement in Gadira's astonishment at Assane's extensive collection of Arsène Lupin memorabilia. Dumont pulls Laguerre aside, insisting on keeping details of the case quiet and limiting evidence access to just them. Laguerre agrees though, with a hint of doubt. Unaware of the unfolding events, Benjamin gets a call from Assane advising him to leave his shop at once. Alarmed, Benjamin quickly packs his essential items and leaves. Assane calls again to check if Benjamin is being followed. Spotting Pascal trailing him, Benjamin confirms he is. Following Assane's advice, Benjamin waits at a bus stop, a public place where Pascal would hesitate to act. Both board an incoming bus, and at Assane's instruction, Benjamin jumps off right before the doors close, leaving Pascal on the moving bus. The following day, Belkacem admits Gadira was correct about the connection between Assane and Arsène Lupin, though Gadira feels disheartened and unsure. Belkacem tries to boost his confidence by pointing to the amount of Lupin memorabilia found in Assane's place. Gadira struggles with the thought of Assane being a murderer, arguing that Arsène Lupin never kills. Belkacem reminds him that Lupin is just a story, whereas Assane is real and might have different reasons. Assane and Benjamin, in the meantime, make their way into a storage unit owned by Benjamin. Before entering, Assane discreetly steals a cell phone from a passerby. Inside, Assane uses the stolen phone to look up a recent news piece about himself and leaves a comment under the alias Ganimard. Benjamin expresses his concern, urging that they need to leave Paris quickly. However, Assane argues that fleeing would mean admitting guilt. Benjamin realizes that despite any advice he might offer, Assane will always follow his own path. Dumont gets a message from Hubert, which reveals Benjamin's true identity. He sends Laguerre to check on Benjamin's shop, with Belkacem accompanying him, but decides to keep Gadira back at the station. At the shop, Belkacem discovers the location of the storage unit. Meanwhile, Assane and Benjamin, hearing police noises outside, quickly flee through a hidden exit leading to the Paris catacombs. By the time Laguerre and Belkacem get inside, Assane and Benjamin are gone, but they do find the secret tunnel, not knowing where it heads. Navigating through Assane's escape route, Laguerre and Belkacem eventually come across a group of tourists and realize they're in the catacombs. They call for backup and have the area cleared of visitors. Assane and Benjamin exit the catacombs via a ladder that ends in a small garden close to the Maison de Solène. Benjamin hands back a map of the catacombs' secret paths and a diamond from the Queen's necklace to a ticket officer. They had borrowed them from back in 1995. While Raoul is engaged with the latest Arsène Lupin book given by Assane, Marc tries to connect with him. Raoul feels slighted by Marc's implication that he's outgrown the books but shares the storyline of the blonde lady, the book he's currently into. Gisteria, while on his computer, notices a news alert about Assane. He finds a comment that seems nonsensical, signed by Ganimard. Gisteria suspects it's a coded message from Assane and deciphers it to reveal a la lampe Jouet of the Jewish lamp, tying it to an Arsène Lupin tale. Recalling a menorah found in Assane's apartment, Gisteria retrieves it without authorization and discovers a USB hidden in a candle. The USB, once examined, shows video of Assane coercing Dumont into admitting his corrupt actions. It also includes documents connecting Dumont to Babacar and Hubert, alongside details on Leonard. Hubert, meanwhile, is enjoying his expected fortune with Philippe Corbett and Pascal. Dumont comes in, requesting a private chat. Hubert insists Dumont speak openly. Dumont shares that he secured the evidence from Assane's apartment, but emphasizes the need to eliminate anything linking them to Leonard's death. Hubert is pleased, but Dumont is anxious, knowing some officers might be getting close to the truth. Assane and Benjamin, sitting by a bridge with a view of the Théâtre du Châtelet, reflect on its history with Arsène Lupin. Benjamin notes that it's their turn next, to which Assane confidently agrees, hinting at their final move against Hubert. Babacar stands in the corridor of the Pellegrini family's large home, alongside two others who are there for job interviews with Hubert for the roles of driver and caretaker. Once it's Babacar's turn, Hubert quickly decides to hire him on the spot. After expressing his gratitude and exiting, Hubert nonchalantly cleans off what he sees as dust from his clothing. On a visit to the Pellegrini residence, Assane is struck by the luxury of the place. Babacar gifts Assane a camera, and they capture a moment together with a photo. 3 weeks before the concert at the Théâtre du Châtelet, Assane uses a drone to peek into Hubert's office. Watching the video from his shop, Benjamin spots the name Lucas Lacroix on a document on Hubert's desk. Lacroix, a stockbroker for Hubert, holds crucial information like usernames, bank accounts, and passwords, carrying it all in his briefcase. One day, as Lacroix heads to his job in the business area of Paris, Benjamin stages a mugging, knocking Lacroix down and taking his briefcase while Assane pretends to chase him. They take the needed information from the briefcase and then return it to Lacroix. Looking for another team member, Assane and Benjamin go to a library and spot a young man with an edgy look trying to sneak away with an Arsène Lupin book. Noticing Assane and Benjamin's interest, the man agrees to join them. They tidy up his appearance, cutting his hair, removing his makeup and jewelry, and dressing him in a professional suit, transforming him into financial advisor Philippe Corbett, a name inspired by an artist who depicted the Etretat Cliffs. They reward him with a diamond from the necklace and promise another once their scheme is complete. Assane then informs Lucas Lacroix about Corbett, a so-called shady new broker targeting his clients. Lacroix relays this to Hubert, who, intrigued, arranges a meeting with Corbett. Impressed by Corbett's confident and lucrative promises, Hubert hires him on the spot. On the concert day at the Théâtre du Châtelet, Philippe and Pascal watch as workers, including Benjamin disguised as one, carry in crates filled with computer gear saying hidden in one of them to the venue. Philippe explains to Pascal that the equipment will help speed up the donation process. Pascal, satisfied, goes to discuss the event's security with Dumont, mentioning that all attendees will be checked. Dumont, wary of Assane's potential appearance, advises Pascal to stay alert. Later, Dumont questions Philippe and the incognito Benjamin about the contents of the crates. Despite Philippe's explanation about the computers, Dumont, doubting their size to be appropriate for modern tech, decides to inspect one but only finds electronics inside. Back at the police station, Belkacem receives updated lab evidence concerning Leonard's murder. The evidence reveals a footprint on Leonard's coat that's size 42, while Assane's shoe size is 46, indicating Assane might not be the murderer. Gisteria then shares with her a video of Dumont confessing to corruption. When Laugier inquires about their findings, Gisteria shows him the video as well. The trio of officers meet in the interrogation room, where Guedera reveals that Leonard and Babacar were both in jail together, Leonard for attempted murder and Babacar for the necklace theft, with Dumont overseeing Babacar's case. Guedera also mentions Dumont's refusal to allow questioning of Leonard upon his later arrest. Recalling how Dumont removed Guedera from the Queen's necklace investigation, possibly to prevent him from discovering the truth, they all agree. Disturbed by their commissioner's actions, they decide to arrest him during the concert at the Pellegrinises. That evening, atop the Theatre du Châtelet, Assane, Benjamin, and Philippe watch as guests arrive. Benjamin indicates where Hubert and Juliette will be seated, while Philippe informs Assane that his computer is set to reroute the donations to Hubert's bank account. Feeling a bit anxious, Assane departs. In her dressing room, Juliette gets ready for her performance, receiving compliments and encouragement from Hubert. Meanwhile, Laguerre, Belkacem, and Guedera make their way into the concert hall, showing their police badges to gain entry. Dumont, seated among the audience, scans the room anxiously. The concert kicks off with Juliette stepping on stage to launch the event and to motivate the audience to donate through a newly launched app. Philippe watches the influx of donations on his computer as Hubert observes the event with keen interest from his balcony spot. As the concert progresses and Hubert starts to enjoy the music, Assane sneaks into his private box, confronts him with a knife, and demands the truth. Despite Hubert's attempt to break free, Assane strengthens his hold, threatening Hubert's life for answers, particularly about Fabienne's demise. Initially, Hubert suggests Fabienne took her own life, but under pressure, he confesses to having Leonard murder her. Assane further accuses Hubert of ordering Raoul's kidnapping, to which Hubert insists he never wanted Raoul harmed, though he does confess to wanting Assane eliminated. Arrest for the identity of Leonard's killer, Hubert names Pascal. Assane then probes into his father's case. Hubert reveals he had Babacar employed solely to set him up for the theft of the Queen's necklace for insurance money, and had Leonard kill Babacar in jail to prevent any challenge to his conviction. Enraged yet controlling his impulse to harm Hubert, Assane hears Hubert's taunt that no one would believe his story. Assane then steps back and exits, leaving Hubert unaware that the entire conversation was recorded on an electronic watch. Assane makes a quick escape from Hubert's box, triggering Hubert to alert everyone about the security breach. This leads to an extensive pursuit. Dumont, informed by Pascal via text that Assane is in the venue, exits the concert to call for a security team. Noticing Dumont's sudden departure, Laguerre, along with Belkacem and Guedera, decide to follow suit. In a dressing room, Assane confronts Pascal, resulting in a fierce struggle until Assane overpowers Pascal, leaving him unconscious in a room. As Assane tries to make his way to the stage, Dumont confronts him, aiming a gun at him. Unexpectedly, Dumont is caught off guard and disarmed by Laguerre, Belkacem, and Guedera, who are also armed. Laguerre announces they're aware of Dumont's corrupt actions and detains him. Assane starts to leave but is halted by Belkacem's command. However, Guedera persuades her to allow Assane a momentary reprieve. As Assane departs relieved, Laguerre informs Dumont of his arrest for corruption. The concert concludes, and Philippe displays the old photo of Assane and Babacar on the stage screen. Assane enters the stage, surprising the audience. He quickly apologizes to Juliette before exposing Hubert's crimes, including the false accusation against Babacar, orchestrating murders, and embezzling from Juliette's foundation. Right as special forces enter, Benjamin switches off the theater's lights. In the ensuing darkness, the panicked crowd rushes towards the exits. Benjamin and Philippe blend in with the exiting crowd, make their way to a yellow Fiat 5500, and drive off after giving Philippe the final diamond and assuring the foundation's funds will be rightfully directed to Juliette. Benjamin assures Philippe that Assane will find his own way out. Disguised with a beard, dreadlocks, and a firefighter's uniform, Assane deceives the police into thinking Assane Diop is on the roof, enabling his smooth exit from the scene. Guedera, meanwhile, is astounded to receive a message from Assane, which includes a recording of Hubert's confession. This crucial evidence leads to the arrest of both Hubert and Dumont. Discarding his disguise, Assane catches the attention of nearby officers and dashes off. He crosses the Pont Neuf, descends to the riverbank, jumps onto a motorboat, and speeds away just before the police can reach him. Heading up the river towards the Canal St. Martin, he notes the time is 9:30 p.m. with a smile. While Claire helps Raoul with his history homework, they're interrupted by a series of beeps. Investigating the source in Claire's room, they find an electronic watch under her bed, left by Assane. Activating the watch, Raoul sees a message indicating Raoul's Bridge 10-0, a reference to the place where his parents decided on his name. Despite Claire's hesitations, Raoul's determination leads her to agree to go to the bridge with him. Arriving at the bridge by 10-0, they initially see no sign of Assane. Then, hearing a boat, they turn to see Assane approaching, full of joy. Docking the boat, Assane meets them on the bridge, sharing a tender reunion with Raoul rushing into his arms, followed by Claire. Claire questions if Assane's endeavors are over. He admits they are, acknowledging the trouble his actions have caused. Despite Claire's protests, Assane insists on leaving for their safety. They share a heartfelt moment, with Assane promising to watch over them despite his absence, urging Claire to take care of herself as well. Expressing his love one last time, Assane departs as police sirens intensify. Claire and Raoul, distracted briefly by the noise, find Assane has vanished when they look back. Police rush past in pursuit, leaving Claire and Raoul to hold onto each other in the midst of the unfolding drama. As summer begins and the Andrassy school closes for the break, Benjamin shares with Assane his plans to stay with Paul, a family acquaintance of the Farrells whom Assane isn't fond of. Later, an official notifies Assan that the current resident of his old apartment has been receiving letters for him from Senegal, advising Assan to collect them. Upon visiting his former apartment, Assane receives a pile of letters from the person living there now. Leaving, he notices what seems to be a postcard from his mother among the letters. Before he gets the chance to look at it closely, he runs into Bruno, an old friend from his childhood who lives close by with his sister Anna. As they get caught up in the excitement of watching France win a game in the 1998 World Cup, Assane inquires if he could stay with Bruno for a while. Bruno agrees to let him stay. A year after the event, at the Theatre du Châtelet, hosted by the Pellegrinis, Assane, now sporting a full beard, resides in Marseille along with Jacques. Watching a news segment that shows Claire and Raoul being bombarded by journalists and pleading for privacy, Assane feels deeply disturbed by the distress his family is enduring and decides it's time to head back to Paris. On a rainy evening in late November, after finishing her hospital shift, Claire gets a mysterious text instructing her to follow a man with an orange umbrella. Despite guessing it might be one of Assane's schemes, she decides to go along. She is led to a secluded loggia where Assane reveals himself. Claire, after a brief pause, attempts to leave. Assane stops her, trying to explain his understanding of her anger. Claire, close to tears, tells him he cannot grasp the fear and embarrassment she and Raoul face every day, blaming him for his selfishness. Assane suggests fleeing France together, mentioning a boat departing from Marseille in 2 days. This idea, however, only angers Claire more, as she refuses to let Raoul live on the run. She believes Assane's only option to make things right is to surrender to the police. Receiving no commitment from Assane, Claire condemns him as not a hero but a coward and departs. After Claire's disapproving response, Assane talks to Benjamin about her reaction. Benjamin reminds him that Assane's actions have significantly troubled Claire's life, evidenced by her frequent appearances on tabloid covers. Assane resolves to pull off one last job to secure his family's future, stealing a renowned black pearl he once tried and failed to acquire, followed by staging his own demise. He shares with Benjamin his plan to disappear with flair. Assane, disguised as a delivery person, visits the Maison Everland boutique at Place Vendôme, where the black pearl is displayed. He tries to drop off a letter while masked with his motorcycle helmet, but Madame Simon, the receptionist, insists he come in and unveil himself. Recognizing him, she nearly alarms, but Assane persuades her he's merely a look-alike of Assane Diop, burdened by the resemblance. The letter is handed to Monsieur Nicolas Imbert, the boutique's proprietor, who, upon reading it, is alarmed and contacts the police, now led by Captain Sophia Belkacem. Arriving, they meet a Brie commander named Felix, announcing his team is safeguarding the vicinity. Inside, Imbert reveals Assane's letter to the police, detailing his intent to steal the Black Pearl at 10:00 p.m. On Friday, December 3, Belkacem instructs Imbert to keep the letter confidential. Observing Raoul play basketball with peers, Assane is saddened to see him subjected to mockery and bullying. A confrontation erupts when a boy accuses Raoul of being neglected by Assane, leading Raoul to retaliate and a fight ensues. The coach's effort to intervene is minimal, ultimately leading to the cancellation of the practice. Even though Youssef Goudira is not currently working on the case, Belkacem updates him that Assane is back in action. Goudira, thrilled by the news, eagerly asks for details. Belkacem hands over Assane's letter to Imbert, which Goudira quickly connects to a similar tactic used by Arsène Lupin in one of his heists. He also recognizes the name Assane used, Michel Beaumont, as one of Lupin's aliases. Meanwhile, Assane has shared the letter with Fleur Belanger, a journalist at The Objector who has been covering his story. Her editor, Frank, praises her for the scoop, sparking envy in Arnold Degarmo, a competing journalist. Soon, the news of Assane's planned theft spreads nationwide, much to the police's frustration. Claire, watching a news report on Assane's daring plan, is filled with concern. Imbert shows the boutique's advanced security measures and the Black Pearl's location, protected by laser alarms, to Felix. That night, as the police and Imbert watch the security cameras intently, a crowd of Assane's supporters gathers outside Maison Ever. Goudira, driven by curiosity, joins the crowd, unknowingly standing next to Fleur. A TV crew is also on site to cover the event, while Claire and Raoul watch the unfolding scene from their home, anxious about the outcome. When the clock hits 10 row and nothing happens, the gathered crowd and Belkacem's team feel a mix of disappointment and relief. But just as they start to relax, the alarms blare, prompting cheers from Assane's fans. At home, Raoul's smile is met with Claire's disapproving headshake, though she too ends up smiling. Belkacem, frustrated, starts to reveal the identities of the Brie officers near the Pearl. Imbert, monitoring the security cameras, spots an imposter Brie officer familiar with the security layout and alerts Belkacem. Inside Imbert's office, Assane quickly changes into his normal attire and heads for the exit, only to be stopped and handcuffed by Felix. As Assane is escorted out past his cheering supporters, he catches sight of Goudira. The news of Assane's capture is broadcasted, leaving Raoul disheartened and Claire comforting him. Assane is then put into a police car and taken away. In a twist, Felix is revealed to be Bruno, Assane's friend, with Benjamin as the other officer. The trio had orchestrated the entire evening. They let Assane out in an alley, from where he attempts to escape across Paris rooftops. However, real police officers soon spot him. Arting an attempt to evade capture, Assane tries to leap across a wide gap between buildings, but misses the edge and falls to the ground below. At a cafe, Assane shares with Claire a postcard from his mother, Mariama, puzzling Claire with the name Sani written on it. Assane reveals it was his childhood nickname given by his mother. He recounts the long wait for Mariama to arrive in Paris, which never happened, leaving her whereabouts unknown to him. Assane is living with Bruno and his sister Anne, who are navigating life without parents and cleverly avoiding child services, with the help of Bruno's godfather acting as their guardian. Bruno takes Assane to the Boxing Beats Club, run by his formidable godfather Jean-Luc Keller. Despite Assane's lack of boxing experience, Keller welcomes him to the club, where Assane quickly shows a knack for boxing, earning Keller's praise for his resilience and skill. Claire agrees to assist Assane in searching for Mariama online. They discover she's serving a prison sentence in Senegal for a serious theft charge. After calling multiple prisons, they finally reach Mariama. Assane vows to free her, but a distraught Mariama insists she can no longer be of help to him and urges him to move on, asking for his forgiveness before ending the call. Disturbed by Mariama's indifference, Assane tells Claire he feels neglected by his mother. Claire encourages him not to lose hope, but Assane laments his worthlessness as the offspring of criminals. After Assane's escape news, Goudira, walking through the city, gets a call from Belkacem revealing Assane's escape. He encounters a nervous crowd in an alley, learning Assane allegedly fell from a roof, evidenced by a hat and blood on the ground. Benjamin and Philippe, disguised as paramedics, rush Assane into a hospital and, once secluded, switch to lab coats and move him to the morgue, where they meet Dr. Daniel Martinez, the chief mortician. Philippe, posing as Dr. Verns, a supposed new staff member, convinces Martinez to let them handle the body without calling for verification. Shocked to see Assane's identity, Martinez agrees to let them proceed and handle the paperwork. Despite the circumstances, Goudira doubts Assane's death, drawing parallels to Arsène Lupin's fictional escapades. Belkacem dismisses his theories. At the morgue, Benjamin hides from the familiar officers, while Felipe claims Assane's fall was fatal, negating an autopsy. Guipre's skepticism prompts a check for a heartbeat, but a tampered stethoscope yields no signs of life, leading an exasperated Belkacem to pull Guidera away. Martinez, also a colleague of Claire's, reluctantly informs her of the grim development. The next day, Fleur is upset after discovering Arnold went to the morgue last night to report on Assane's death. Knowing Fleur's significant role in reporting on Assane for the Objector, Guidera arranges a meeting with her to question how the media knew to be at the morgue ahead of the police. Fleur admits she was not the one who got the tip, prompting Guidera to share his suspicion that Assane's death was a hoax. He proposes to provide Fleur with insights into Assane's link to Arsène Lupin, frustrated that his theory is not being adequately acknowledged. At the police department, Belkacem informs Guidera about Assane's funeral set for Thursday at Père Lachaise Cemetery. The funeral draws a large crowd, including Benjamin, Claire, Raoul, Belkacem, Guidera, and some of Assane's critics. As the service begins, Guidera interrupts, insisting Assane is still alive and demanding the casket be opened. Claire, distraught, pleads with Benjamin to intervene. However, when opened, the casket reveals Assane's seemingly lifeless body. Guidera, now regretful, attempts to console Claire, who reacts with disdain. After the ceremony, the casket is buried, and the crowd disperses. Alone, Assane activates a flashlight and escapes the coffin through a trapdoor leading to an underground passage, which connects to an old sewer system. Dressed in a gardener's outfit over his funeral attire, he emerges into daylight effortlessly. Following the funeral, Assane notices a newspaper calling for Sani with a phone number listed. Stunned, he calls the number and a woman claiming to be his mother, Mariama, answers. The woman claims to Assane that she has been abducted, and her abductors demand the Black Pearl for her release. When Benjamin tells Assane they found a buyer for the pearl to fund a secure home for him, Claire and Raoul, Assane shocks him by wanting to abandon the plan after his mother's distressing phone call. Benjamin doubts the caller's authenticity as Mariama, but Assane insists the risk is too great to ignore, given someone knows he's alive. At the church Mariama mentioned, Assane discovers a phone hidden under a pew ringing. The caller, claiming to be his mother, instructs him to leave the pearl in the church's donation box to ensure her safety, threatening her life otherwise. To verify her identity, she sings a childhood lullaby in Wolof, convincing Assane of her identity. He reluctantly complies, leaving the pearl in the donation box and exiting the church with a heavy heart. Claire, noticing Raoul's surprisingly calm demeanor post-Assane's funeral, worries about his state of denial regarding his father's death. Raoul, however, visits the library to research an old Napoleonic map of the Paris sewer system, comparing it to a modern map of Père Lachaise Cemetery, particularly around Assane's burial site. Discovering the proximity of Assane's grave to the old sewers, Raoul's excitement grows, bolstering his belief in his father's survival strategy. Assane faces a challenge at the boxing gym when Keller informs him he'll be excluded for not paying the membership fee. Distressed by the 3,000 francs demand, Assane confides in Bruno about his predicament. Bruno will pickpocket a wallet from a wealthy local, and Assane will return it, playing the hero. This act gives Assane the chance to slip away with a valuable statue from the wealthy individual's home. Keller admires Assane's cunning upon learning about the theft, revealing the statue's actual value of 100,000 francs, and welcoming Assane into the fold. Curious about Assane's inspiration, Keller inquires, leading Assane to show him a battered copy of the Confessions of Arsène Lupin. Keller, seizing the book, advises Assane to focus on the realities of life rather than fiction. Meanwhile, Bruno observes the growing bond between Assane and Keller with a hint of jealousy. After sharing the church incident with Benjamin, Assane faces skepticism regarding the caller's identity. Despite doubts, Assane is convinced the woman is indeed his mother, Mariama, especially because she knew a unique Wolof song from his childhood. Benjamin questions the song's uniqueness, but an emotional Assane is certain of his mother's peril. Soon, a message arrives on the phone from the church, directing Assane to steal the Ches Tortoni painting by Edouard Manet from a criminal named Cisco within 3 days. Cisco, known for his ruthless method of dealing with adversaries through a deadly card draw, becomes Assane's next challenge. Assane, under the alias Sam DeLangle, manages to fool Cisco with a deck of all aces prepared by Benjamin. Winning Cisco's temporary approval and posing as a getaway driver, Assane is asked to return the next day. Cisco, wary of Assane, plans to use him despite his distrust. Assane doesn't leave Cisco's premises, but instead searches for the painting. He discovers it in a room with Cisco's sick mother, who mistakes him for her son, Nicolas. During their interaction, she praises Cisco's care for her, prompting a reflective moment for Assane about his own mother. Suddenly interrupted by Cisco's gang, Assane is protected by Cisco's mother, who sends the intruders away, allowing Assane a discreet exit. Confronted by Cade outside, Assane claims he was lost looking for the bathroom. Kisite, unconvinced, tells Assane to leave, not noticing Assane skillfully taking his cell phone. Assane makes a quick stop at a kebab shop to use it as an escape route from Cad, who's been tracking him. He cleverly exits through the back and arranges for a teenager to return Cade's phone, which Assane had earlier stolen. Back at the gang's base, Assane faces Cisco's suspicion due to Cad's accusations of him being an informant, challenging Assane's false criminal background. Assane cleverly flips the accusation onto Cade, suggesting he's the real snitch for supposedly calling the police on Assane. Caught in the dispute, Cisco checks Cad's phone and, upon finding an unfamiliar number, calls it, reaching Benjamin, who pretends to be Officer Corrington. Convinced of Cade's betrayal, Cisco confronts him but ends up testing his loyalty with a deadly card game, which Cade narrowly survives by drawing. Meanwhile, Gudira shares with Fleur his findings on Assane's Lupin-like maneuvers and his suspected fake death, frustrated by his colleagues' indifference. Fleur, intrigued by Gudira's dedication, agrees to exchange information for access to his research. When Belkacem interrupts, Fleur unexpectedly introduces herself as Gudira's girlfriend, leaving Belkacem surprised at Gudira's personal life. Claire, seeking truth, confronts Benjamin, asking him to confirm Assane's fate. Despite his turmoil, Benjamin keeps the secret. Later, Fleur approaches Claire, probing for any leads on Assane and his Lupin connection or the speculation about his fake death. Claire, however, responds with silence and a stern look, leaving Fleur to leave her contact information and depart. Doubting Benjamin, Belkacem visits him to inquire about his whereabouts on the night of December 3rd. Benjamin, pretending to be offended, mockingly suggests she search his shop for the Black Pearl. A noise from upstairs raises Belkacem's suspicions, only to be revealed as J'accuse descending the stairs. After Belkacem departs, Benjamin hurries to his secret hideout with Assane to discuss who might have kidnapped Mariama, suspecting a past adversary. In a cafe, Claire nervously observes another patron reading about Assane's funeral. Raoul, sitting with her, starts theorizing about Assane faking his death, much to Claire's worry about his grasp on reality. Despite her attempts to remind him that the Lupin tales are fictional, Raoul leaves, eager not to be late for basketball practice with his new coach, Alex, who is actually Assane in disguise. Claire, unaware of Alex's true identity, confides in him about Raoul's difficulties, asking him to keep her updated on Raoul's progress. Assane, still disguised, promises to do so. After coaching, Assane, still posing as Sam DeLangle, hurries back to Cisco's, apologizing for his tardiness. He then gets involved in planning a robbery with Cisco, choosing an inconspicuous car for the heist and having it temporarily painted orange. The plan is executed flawlessly, with Assane using a car wash to remove the paint and evade the police. Cisco, still wary of Assane, challenges him to draw an ace. Assane cleverly rigs the deck with a smoke bomb, which detonates when he picks a joker, incapacitating Cisco and his crew. Assane, prepared with a gas mask, retrieves the Minette painting from a safe in the car after deducing the combination and escapes. When Cisco wakes up, he's greeted by the police, having been betrayed by Assane's strategic tip-off. Under the guise of Alex, Assane keeps coaching Raoul. One day, as they're leaving the basketball court, they encounter Claire. Assane, still in disguise, updates her on Raoul's progress. Claire becomes annoyed upon noticing Fleur nearby and asks Raoul to wait in the car. Approaching Fleur, Assane, though intimidating in posture, doesn't deter Fleur from insisting she has crucial information for Claire. After Fleur leaves, Claire, unaware of Assane's true identity beside her, expresses frustration over the persistent media interest, yet appreciates Alex for his support. Later, Assane takes the Minette painting to a designated meeting place by the Seine, where he meets Ferdinand, a man involved in Mariama's abduction. Assane insists on proof of his mother's well-being before handing over the painting. Ferdinand makes a call, allowing Assane a brief conversation with Mariama, who implores him to stop cooperating with her captors before being abruptly silenced. Ferdinand leaves with the artwork, unaware Assane has attached a tracker to it, devised by Benjamin. Assane follows Ferdinand's trail to a location at the Place d'Italie. Assane has grown close to Keller's girlfriend, Manon, sparking jealousy in Bruno. Bruno warns Assane that Keller will be unhappy about their closeness. Despite Assane's assurances that he and Man are just friends, Bruno reports his concerns to Keller. Contrary to Bruno's expectations, Keller expresses trust in Manon and rebukes Bruno for his betrayal. Emphasizing the importance of loyalty within his gym, Keller decides that Assane and Bruno must resolve their dispute through a boxing match as a lesson in respect. The match takes place with the gym's members, including Manon, as witnesses. Bruno, feeling resentful towards Assane for Keller's apparent partiality, aggressively starts the fight. Assane, initially adopting a defensive approach, is spurred on by Keller to go on the offensive. Eventually, Assane lands a decisive blow that knocks Bruno out, earning him victory and Keller's praise. Bruno, humiliated, leaves the scene in anger. In the hideout of the kidnappers, Assane meets a woman with a shaved head, clad entirely in black, who is actually Manon, though he doesn't realize it. He demands to see his mother, but Manon informs him she's not present. At Assane's insistence, Manon calls her superior and announces Assane's presence. Over the speakerphone, Assane hears his mother Mariama instructing him to steal a lavish bracelet known as the Red Sea from Tara Zhang, Max Mahler's wife. Assane must also implicate Benjamin to the authorities. Back at his secret base, Assane recounts to Benjamin the plan to acquire the Red Sea bracelet, omitting the kidnapper's demand for Benjamin's betrayal. Benjamin explains the bracelet's uniqueness lies in its complex clasp, doubting his ability to replicate it. Yet, Assane urges Benjamin to attempt it, expressing confidence in his skills. Benjamin reluctantly agrees to try. Later, Assane, still under the guise of coach, Alex, meets with Claire. She expresses worry about Raoul's withdrawn behavior since his father's supposed death and asks if Assane, as Alex, could share any confidences Raoul might have. Assane, maintaining his role, declines, emphasizing his confidentiality. Claire admits feeling a sense of ease around him, quickly assuring Assane her comment wasn't flirtatious. Assane responds with humor, suggesting they've entered the friend zone, lightening the mood. At the hospital, Claire encounters Dr. Martinez, who inquires if she's familiar with Dr. Vernes, the one who identified Assane's body. Claire's denial leads Martinez to reveal the police are searching for anyone present at the morgue that night, noting Vernes' absence from hospital records. Despite Nurse Catherine's suggestion that new doctor's details might take time to enter the system, Claire grows suspicious about Assane's supposed death and asks Catherine to forward any information on Vernes she might uncover. Assane shares with Benjamin their plan to steal the Red Sea during a gala at Chateau de Thorey, intending to disguise themselves as cloakroom attendants to access guests' belongings. They rehearse the theft, with Benjamin acting as a guest while Assane practices removing his jacket and simulating the bracelet theft, initially with little success. While waiting for Raoul after basketball, Claire gets a call from Fleur, who she had tried to contact earlier. Claire questions Fleur's skepticism about Assane's death and agrees to consider meeting her despite refusing an interview. For post-practice, Assane, still disguised as Alex, learns of Claire's call with Fleur and challenges her inability to move on, echoing Raoul's struggle. Offended, Claire leaves abruptly with Raoul. That night, Claire finds Raoul's notes detailing theories on Assane's staged demise, referencing the Lupin tale Edith Swan Neck. Searching for the book among Raoul's library loans, she finds it missing. Assane visits Gerard, the cloakroom attendant at Chateau de Thorey, under the guise of an electric company employee. He informs Gerard that due to antenna maintenance near his home, his Wi-Fi will be unavailable from 6:00 p.m. to midnight on Saturday. Gerard, unbothered as he'll be working, unknowingly signs a series of documents, including a fake resignation letter, at Assane's behest. Fleur's piece linking Assane to the Lupin tales hits the Objector's front page, leading her to contact Gudira for a dinner date, which he accepts despite the awkward timing. Gudira's moment of anticipation is cut short by Belkasem's confrontation over the leaked information, accusing him of obstructing the Black Pearl investigation. Gudira denies being the leak, but Belkacem is unconvinced. Seeking Edith Yukudasign, Claire visits the Bibliothèque Nationale, feigning disinterest in Lupin despite the librarian's comments on the book's newfound popularity post-Fleur's article, disguising herself due to the unexpected fame. She navigates the library only to find Lupin's section swarmed with new enthusiasts. Spotting the last copy of Edith Yukudasign, she watches in dismay as it's taken by teenagers. Claire follows them to the cafe, where she creates a distraction by bumping into a waitress, allowing her to discreetly take the book from the girls' table and leave unnoticed, feeling a mix of guilt and triumph for her stealthy act. Assane, having disguised himself as a gardener at Chateau de Thorey, is well versed in the layout. especially the complex hedge maze. He instructs Benjamin on navigating the maze to escape with the bracelet, but deliberately misguides him by adding an extra hedge to block the real exit. The accused senses Assane's deceit, but Benjamin remains clueless. On the gala night, Gerard discovers a flat tire and is unable to call for help due to his Wi-Fi being disabled by Assane and Benjamin's scheme. Surprised, he finds an envelope filled with €500 bills left by Assane. At the gala, Assane and Benjamin, pretending to be cloakroom attendants, can't get the bracelet initially as Mr. Mahler takes Mrs. Zhang's jacket himself. When questioned by the chateau's head of staff about Gerard's absence, Assane as Cornelis and Benjamin as Elaine claim Gerard resigned, citing exploitation and poor pay in a letter forged with Gerard's unwitting signature from when Assane masqueraded as an electrician. As the gala concludes, Assane skillfully removes the bracelet from Tara's wrist under the guise of assisting with her coat, but then deliberately drops it. Benjamin's attempt to retrieve it draws the guests' attention, causing confusion. In the ensuing chaos, Benjamin flees with the bracelet, prompting Mr. Mahler to call for his apprehension. Simultaneously, the police arrive, acting on an anonymous tip from Assane about the impending theft. Benjamin attempts to flee through the castle's maze, following Assane's instructions, only to discover a drone in a clearing. He attaches the bracelet to it and sends it flying to Manon, who waits in a car outside the castle. Pursued by police, Benjamin is thwarted by the unexpected hedge Assane had placed, forcing him to backtrack, soon finding himself trapped. Gudira and Belkasim's team swiftly apprehends him, with Belkasim chiding him for not matching Assane's skill. As they escort Benjamin away, he spots Assane from a castle window. Disturbed by the turn of events, Assane seeks comfort from Claire, calling her as Alex. Despite their recent spat, Claire offers support, sensing his sadness. Assane confesses his struggles with fatherhood, to which Claire shares the challenges of motherhood and admits to exploring a Lupin book, moving Assane. They agree to meet after Raoul's next basketball session. Shortly after, Claire is informed by Catherine that there's no record of a Dr. Verns at the hospital. Claire, unsettled, hastily reviews Edith Okuday's Shine, finding a quote that rekindles her hope. With Lupin, as I told you, there's no such thing as death. While out with her friends, Claire notices a forlorn Assane on a bench, surprised to see his left eye is significantly bruised. Inquiring about the injury, Assane boasts about defending himself in a confrontation. Claire's concern grows as she deduces Assane's involvement in fights at Keller's boxing gym. Assane admits needing a place to stay due to a fallout with Bruno, his recent opponent. After a lighthearted exchange about sharing a bed, Claire offers to assist him. Assane takes Claire to Keller's gym, where she expresses her distaste for its aggressive atmosphere, questioning its alignment with Babacar's values. Keller, wary of Claire, questions her identity, to which Assane introduces her as a friend. But Carissa's out, he confronts Keller about exploiting youths, leading Keller to defend the gym as a family, not a cage. Assane decides to stay with the gym, disappointing Claire, who then departs. Keller advises Assane to ponder his friendships, highlighting that true friends stick together. In jail, Benjamin faces questioning from Gudira, who tries to press him into revealing an accomplice from the Chateau d'Oie heist. Benjamin steadfastly refuses to acknowledge any collaboration. Gudira suggests Assane has turned on him based on an anonymous tip about the heist, promising freedom if Benjamin discloses Assane's whereabouts. Yet, Benjamin misleads Gudira with a false lead to Assane's cemetery plot. During a search of Benjamin's store, Belkacem almost discovers the entrance to Assane's hidden lair but ultimately departs empty-handed. Simultaneously, Assane learns from Mariama that her captors plan to dispose of her after selling the stolen Manette painting, prompting urgent action from him. Gudira shares with Belkacem his unsuccessful interrogation of Benjamin, puzzled over Benjamin's loyalty to Assane. Belkacem, frustrated, insists Gudira abandon his Assane investigations, considering him deceased. Yet, upon returning to his office, Gudira is surprised to find Assane waiting, proposing an alliance against a common foe. Gudira's attempt to detain Assane is effortlessly countered, leading to a negotiation of help in exchange for Assane's eventual surrender. Their discussion is nearly exposed by Belkacem's unexpected return, leading Gudira to feign having a romantic visitor to mislead her. Once she leaves, Assane, now with Gudira's reluctant cooperation, promises the recovery of the Black Pearl, Manette painting, and Red Sea bracelet, leveraging information about his endangered mother to gain Gudira's assistance. Following Gudira's directive, Assane records a confession of his death hoax and his readiness to atone for his actions. Claire's skepticism about Assane's demise intensifies, driving her to actively hunt for any trace of his whereabouts. She's caught by Raoul sifting through his collection of newspaper articles about Assane. Though initially dismissive, Claire eventually acknowledges the inconsistencies in the official account and commends Raoul's efforts to track down Assane, declaring it's her turn to contribute. Claire arranges a meeting with Arnold Desgarmeaux, intrigued by the chance to interview Assane's mysterious ally. At the objector's office, she probes Arnold on how he secured a morgue photo so swiftly. Arnold attributes it to an unnamed tipster who emailed him anonymously. Urged by Claire, Arnold helps draft a composite sketch of the informant, leading Claire to recognize Benjamin. Seizing the drawing, she hurries away before Arnold can respond. In a restaurant, Gadara, with Assane disguised as a cop, engages in light conversation with the owner about his personal life. Assane nudges Gadara to confess his feelings for Belkacem, despite their complicated professional relationship. Interrupted by a call from Claire, Assane switches to Alex mode. Claire shares her plan to visit Benjamin in jail, expressing her apprehension and seeking Assane's support, which he regretfully declines, citing it's not his place. Assane and Guedera visit Frederic Lasserre's art gallery to inquire about any connections to Mariama's abductors and the potential sale of the Manet painting. Lasserre, a suave art thief on probation, greets them warmly. Inside, Assane deliberately drops a sculpture, claiming it's a modern fake being sold as an original, highlighting Lasserre's deceit. In a state of panic, Lasserre takes Assane and Guedera to his office, pressured into admitting he was approached about selling a piece. Assane secures Lasserre's cooperation by promising a buyer and freedom from jail for his compliance. Assane then blindfolds Guedera and brings him to his hideout, revealing his intricate plans and disguises, leaving Guedera in awe. Assane proposes disguising Guedera as art collector Justin Avisto for the sale, a plan Guedera hesitantly accepts. Assane outfits Guedera with a wig and sunglasses, sets up a meeting with Lasserre, and guides Guedera via a hidden headset during the sale at a hotel. Guedera meets with Manon and Ferdinand, presenting as Justin Avisto, and navigates the negotiation over the Manet painting, initially offered at 17 million euros but contested by Manon for 50 million. Guedera manages to close the deal at 20 million euros, to everyone's relief. However, the sale is interrupted by Belkacem and her team, tipped off by Assane. Ferdinand escapes with the cash while Assane follows. Guedera, stunned by the sudden police entry, is instructed by Assane to conclude his role. When Belkacem enters demanding Justin Avisto, Guedera reveals his true identity, shocking Belkacem and leading to a private conversation away from the chaos. Mann and Lasserre are taken into custody by the police. Gistermera explains to Belkacem that he was following a lead undercover. Curious about how she arrived in time, Belkacem mentions a tip-off. Guedera suggests she watch a video on his phone for answers, hoping she'd see Assane's confession, but instead, she finds Guedera's unintended admission of his feelings for her. Mortified, Guedera snatches the phone back as Belkacem expresses her flattery but wonders about their next steps with their bosses. Assane shadows Ferdinand into a shabby shop down an alley, uncovering that Ferdinand's boss is Jean-Luc Keller and connects Manon as the female accomplice. Simultaneously, Claire and Raoul each delve into Assane's mystery. Raoul, armed with a copied map from the library, discovers the old sewer escape route Assane used at Pere Lachaise cemetery. Claire visits Benjamin in jail, dismayed by his bruised appearance. Attempting to learn about Assane, she feigns knowledge of Assane's recent actions and his supposed outreach to her. Benjamin, feeling guilty, inadvertently confirms Assane's survival to Claire, who can't contain her emotional relief, leaving Benjamin to realize his slip-up in revealing Assane's ruse. After reconciling, Assane and Bruno are absorbed in the World Cup semi-final match between France and Croatia, reacting with frustration as Croatia scores. A knock at the door interrupts them, and Assane finds Claire waiting outside. Initially brusque with Claire, Assane quickly softens, explaining his mood is due to France's performance in the game. Claire accepts his apology and joins them inside. While preparing snacks, Claire humorously critiques Assane's ketchup storage method, sparking a light-hearted debate. Their banter is cut short by Bruno's excitement over a French goal, leading to a collective celebration when France secures their spot in the final. The celebration is paused by another knock, this time from Madame Fouchard, a social worker who arrives unexpectedly for an inspection. Bruno attempts to cover for his absent guardian, but Fouchard expresses skepticism, hinting at potential repercussions. Keller's timely entrance with Anna diffuses the situation, as he plays the part of the guardian, causing Fouchard to leave without further action. Keller's subsequent harsh reprimand towards Bruno for opening the door shocks everyone, especially Claire, who openly challenges Keller's authoritarian stance. Assane steps in to calm the situation, preventing it from escalating. Later, Keller unveils a plan to Assane and Bruno to exploit the World Cup Finals distraction by robbing a jewelry store, insisting it's an opportune moment due to the anticipated universal focus on the game. Despite their hesitation, Keller's insistence leaves them feeling they have no choice but to participate in the heist. In his cell, Benjamin spots a drone at his window, dangling a stocking with a ringing cell phone. Quickly grabbing it, he answers to find Assane on the line, checking in on him. Benjamin laments his current state, especially the prison food. As a guard delivers his meal, Benjamin conceals the phone and accepts the tray, discovering a steak dinner from Assane once alone. Rejoining the call, Benjamin reveals Claire's awareness of Assane's survival but her ignorance of his role as Raoul's coach. Assane then shares that Mariama's abductor is John Le Keller, a name unfamiliar to Benjamin, but promises to handle the situation. At the station, Belkacem questions Manon about the stolen items and Assane's whereabouts. Manon, defiant, denies any knowledge, frustrating Belkacem. The interrogation stalls with Manon's refusal to cooperate. Keller, infuriated by Manon's arrest and the counterfeit money from the painting sale, vows vengeance on Assane's family, instructing Ferdinand to eliminate Claire. Claire, noticing Ferdinand after work, quickly evades him, but the encounter leaves her terrified, where she contacts Assane under his Alex guise to ensure Raoul's safety. Back with Raoul and Assane, Claire shares her frightful experience, suspecting her follower was after Assane. Raoul suggests Assane might have sent the follower, confidently believing in his father's return. Claire, uneasy, requests Assane check her apartment for safety, to which he smilingly consents. After confirming Claire's apartment is secure, she thanks Assane by offering to cook dinner for him and Raoul. Post-meal, with Raoul heading to bed early for his game, Claire expresses her hesitation about letting him play, fearing another pursuit. Assane comforts her, promising his presence for safety. Claire finds herself drawn to Assane, disguised as Alex, for his protective nature. She notes the contrast yet similarities between Assane and Alex, sparking a moment of closeness. Attempting to kiss, Claire is gently rebuffed by Assane, who then advises on security measures for her home. The next day, Gudira faces Belkacem's frustration at the precinct, learning she's aware of Assane's involvement in retrieving the painting. Admitting Assane approached him with a proposal, Gudira acknowledges he was outmaneuvered, leading to Belkacem's criticism of his admiration for Assane, where she instructs Gudira to inform her of any future contacts from Assane. Ferdinand informs Keller of his unsuccessful attempt to follow Claire. Keller, annoyed by Ferdinand's vague answers, repeats his deadly order regarding Claire and decides to take care of Mariama himself. Meanwhile, Mariama cleverly escapes her restraints, fakes her escape using bedsheets out the window, and conceals herself under the bed. When Keller sees the makeshift rope, he panics and exits to search for her. Seizing the opportunity, Mariama leaves the hideout, steals a wallet for funds, and heads to Montreal, aiming for her old apartment only to be turned away by the current resident. At home, Claire's discovery of the upside-down ketchup bottle triggers her realization that Alex is actually Assane. She hides her shock from Raoul, maintaining composure while doubts swirl about Assane attending Raoul's game. Claire, shopping for Raoul's promised basketball shoes, playfully flirts with Assane over the phone, now aware of his true identity. Assane, watching from afar and taken aback by Claire's behavior, spots Ferdinand following her. He cleverly distracts Ferdinand, leading to his capture by mall security. Back at Keller's, Ferdinand admits his failure to Keller, who then reveals Mariama's absence. In a fit of rage, Keller throws Ferdinand off the balcony, surviving the fall. Ferdinand is picked up by paramedics, revealing to a police officer that Jean Le Keller attacked him and possesses the Black Pearl. Mariama, upon finding an edition of The Objector with Fleur's story on Assane, heads to the newspaper's office. She introduces herself to Fleur as Assane's mother and requests an ad to arrange a meeting with Assane at where the gentleman listens to his favorite song. After Mariama departs, Fleur, realizing the significance of the request, contacts Gudira, who suggests the Palais Garnier as the likely meeting spot based on an Arsène Lupin story. Gisteret relays his suspicions to Belkacem, who expresses her doubts about his loyalty. Despite her mistrust, Gudera stakes out the Palais Garnier and spots a man he believes to be Assane, disguised and approaching a metro station where Marie is being performed. Gesser witnesses an emotional reunion between Assane and Mariama, confirming his theory as they board a train together, with Assane momentarily acknowledging him. During Raul's basketball game, the absence of Alex disheartens the team. Raul, showing leadership, convinces his team to play on. Claire, watching her son take charge, feels a mix of pride and appreciation for Assane's efforts to reconnect with their family. She returning home from the successful game. Claire's sense of peace is shattered as she detects Keller attempting to enter her apartment. On the day of the World Cup final between France and Brazil, Keller took Assane and Bruno to a jewelry shop he wanted them to burglarize. Assane tried to convince Keller to call off the plan. Arguing that the shopkeepers were innocent, Keller forcefully told Assane that if he and Bruno didn't follow his orders, he would no longer shield them from child welfare services. Assane and Bruno slipped into the shop unnoticed because the receptionist was completely absorbed in watching the soccer game on TV. In the storage room, Assane cracked open a safe, and they both grabbed the valuable items inside. After the heist, they ran out, setting off the shop's alarm, and jumped into Keller's Jeep for the escape. Keller drove off furiously, demanding to see the loot. When he found out they missed a set of emeralds he wanted, Keller yelled at them in anger. Soon, a police motorcyclist was chasing them, siren blaring. Keller tried to shake him off unsuccessfully. He then ordered Bruno to take a gun from the glove compartment and shoot the officer. Bruno was terrified and refused, but Keller threatened his life. Assane told Bruno not to do it, but Keller kept insisting. In a panic, Bruno aimed the gun outside and Assane tried to stop him, but the gun fired, killing the officer. Right after, Keller crashed into a parked car, causing the Jeep to fly into the air, flip over twice, and land upside down. In the car's back, Assane is hurt with many small cuts, but nothing serious. He crawls out through the broken back window of the Jeep and sees Bruno in the front seat, looking very shocked. Assane pulls Bruno from the car, checking if he's okay. Bruno, close to crying, keeps saying it was an accident that the cop was shot. Assane takes the gun from Bruno and puts it in Keller's hand, who is barely awake in the car. Then, Assane and Bruno run away just as a group of cops, led by Gabriel Dumont, get there and catch Keller. Assane heads to a bar, where everyone is too caught up in France's likely win in the World Cup final to notice his bloody look. He uses the bar's phone to call Claire, admitting she was right about Keller and that he's in deep trouble. He tells her he plans to flee and wants her to join him. Claire agrees to go with Assane and waits for him at the Gare de l'Est train station. When he shows up, they share a kiss, excited for the journey ahead. When the alarm sounds, Claire and Raul quickly hide in a closet. Keller stops the alarm and begins to check each room in the apartment, looking for them. Despite feeling scared, Claire acts smartly and calls their landline with her mobile phone, letting the answering machine record a message that makes it seem like she and Raul aren't there. She mentions that Uncle Martin from the police station will be there soon. Keller is tricked by this and leaves the apartment. After they meet again, Assane takes Mariama to where he's been staying. The following day, Assane asks Mariama why she didn't move to France with him and Babacar back in the Années. Mariama shares with tears that in 1995 she was close to saving enough money to join them from her job at a textile factory in Senegal. But then her boss cut the salaries in half. After she protested, she got fired and tried to take what she felt she was owed, which led to her arrest. Released with nowhere to go, she chose a life of theft similar to Assane's path. Their conversation is cut short by a call from Claire, who urgently asks Assane to come get her and Raul. Claire uses Assane's real name, revealing she knows he and Alex are the same person, and pleads for him to come quickly. Assane finds Claire and Raul outside their apartment, scared but relieved to see him. They share a touching hug, happy to be together again. Assane takes them to his hideout, which Claire sees with wonder, and Raul is impressed by Assane's collection of Arsène Lupin books. They're both surprised and happy to meet Mariama. Later, Assane is reading about Thierry Florent, the interior minister, when Mariama and Claire jokingly ask what he's looking into. Assane explains his plan to leverage Florent to free someone from jail. However, Mariama, with Claire's agreement, insists they should use legal ways to release Benjamin and then leave Paris as a family. Assane agrees but says he needs 2 days to sort things out before they can leave. Disguised as Ali Abdelkarim, a supposed officer from the Chadian military, Assane visits the residence of the former French colonel François de Créquy. Assane claims to have been one of François's young guides during his service in Africa back in 1969. Unaware of Assane's deceit, Francois warmly receives him and even takes him to a gala at the Élysée Palace, organized by Florent to honor French military veterans. As Florent gets ready to speak to the attendees, Assane slips away towards Florent's office. A vigilant security guard stops him, but the guard is soon distracted by a commotion caused by a server Mariama in disguise who spills a tray of drinks. Seizing the moment, Assane enters the office, locks the door, and starts searching through Florent's documents. He discovers a chest that conceals a safe, manages to open it, and finds a phone inside. The security guard, upon returning and noticing Assane's unauthorized presence in the office, hurries to inform his colleagues about the breach. Meanwhile, Assane exits through a back door, and Mariama discreetly comes in from the front to take the phone from the safe. They reunite in the courtyard and escape into the underground passages beneath the palace, where Assane and Mariama make their getaway on a jet ski that Assane had previously taken. In his office, a panicked Florent answers a call from Assane, who has the stolen phone. Assane informs Florent about discovering dubious contacts in the phone involving nationalists, smugglers, and criminals. Florent, distressed, offers money to Assane, who instead demands the release of Manon from prison. Once Manon is released, Assane quickly grabs her, warning her to stay quiet or they'll both get caught. Manon inquires about Assane's intentions. Assane pleads with her to help him trap Keller. Initially skeptical, Manon questions Assane's understanding of loyalty, accusing him of family betrayal. Assane then reveals the true events of the 1998 World Cup final day, explaining Keller's manipulation. Torn, Manon agrees to betray Keller, contacting him to set up a fake deal at the Arc de Triomphe. At his hideout, Assane prepares veal stew for his family, telling them it was his father's preferred meal. He announces their departure from Paris the next day, promising freedom at last. After everyone has gone to sleep, Assane watches his family with a mixture of sadness and affection, then quietly leaves. Guidera gets a text on his phone showing a picture of the Arc de Triomphe and the word Grammaden. This name is used by Arsène Lupin in a story about a black pearl. Guidera quickly calls Belkacem to tell him this clue suggests Assane will be at the Arc de Triomphe with the black pearl. Belkacem doubts this at first, but decides to join Guidera there. At the Arc de Triomphe, surrounded by tourists, Keller searches for Manon. He's caught off guard to find Assane instead. Assane reveals to Keller that Manon has turned against him. When Keller tries to hit Assane, Assane dodges easily. He tells Keller the police have been alerted. Keller blames Assane for his past jail time, but Assane counters, accusing Keller of exploitation. Assane demands the pearl, promising Keller freedom if he complies. After a moment, Keller hands the pearl to Assane and tries to escape. Just then, Belkacem and Guidera lead a team of police officers up the stairs, surprising everyone. Keller points out Assane with the pearl, but Belkacem arrests Keller for a previous crime. Assane then cleverly hides the pearl in a rose and gives it to two tourists, pretending he was stood up and not wanting the rose to go to waste. As the tourists leave, they're stopped by Bruno, who pretends he was supposed to meet Assane and asks for the rose back as an apology gesture. The tourist hand it over and Bruno, now with the pearl, joins forces with Manon. They sell the pearl and use the money to revive Keller's boxing gym, giving it an Arsène Lupin theme. While Keller is being arrested, Guidera finds Assane ready to surrender, claiming he's done with his life of crime. Assane tells Guidera to handcuff him, and together they head towards a police vehicle. Guidera questions Assane about the whereabouts of the Black Pearl, but Assane says he doesn't have it. The next day, the police station is buzzing with surprise as Guidera walks in with Assane. In an interrogation room, Assane proposes to share his entire story with Guidera under certain conditions, handing over an envelope addressed to Claire for delivery to Benjamin, alongside a request for Benjamin's release and a demand for his prison cell to be filled with Arsène Lupin novels. Claire, alongside Raoul and Mariama, is at the Gare de l'Est, reminiscent of a past departure with Assane. Following Assane's instructions, she has purchased 4 tickets. Benjamin arrives instead, holding Assane's envelope, which reveals Assane's choice to go to jail voluntarily to ensure Claire and Raoul's freedom. In his cell, Assane is reading a Lupin tale when a guard delivers an envelope from a neighboring inmate. Inside, Assane finds a photo of his younger self with an Arsène Lupin book. He retrieves the mentioned book from his collection and locates a story about Lupin's betrayal by a supposed lover. Meanwhile, the guard confirms the delivery to Assane's neighbor, who is revealed to be Hubert Pellegrini. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.